One of their bigger albums, though, The Wall. Roger Waters wrote almost all of it, but I think the credits to David Gilmour in it are for some of the better songs.
Mm-hmm.
What is the? Oh, I can hear the words.
But
Money,
Waters made an
money.
ass of himself. Yeah, money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, money.
Waters did make an ass of himself with the whole, it can't be Pink Floyd without me in it. They said, oh, yeah, hold my beer.
Right, right. I went and
I
seen
mean,
the Pink Floyd Experience, and it was a cover band from New Zealand, and
mm-hmm.
they put on a whole show with the lasers and the flying pigs and the big jumbotron, and I don't know if you're familiar with some of their other stuff, like Live from Bombay or The Delicate Sound of Thunder, or some of the other videos and things that they did. But it was done much like one of those shows, and it was really, really good. I mean, I could tell it wasn't Pink Floyd because I listened to them so much, but they did a good job of it. I mean, it was close.
Yeah, I mean, as John Lennon said about the Beatles, it's like we were just a band, you know. They're just a band.
Yeah.
How can it be this big a deal, you know? But it was. Whenever you make an innovation, there are only, if you're going by a chromatic scale, there are only 12 tones to use, and it's just how many variations can you make on them. It's pretty amazing that people can do new and innovative things with rhythm, with melody, with harmony. Um, music is fun. Music is very
Yeah.
fun.
No, I think you're right. The Pink Floyd was they came out with the album Echoes, the like compilation greatest hits album or whatever. And whenever I heard some of the songs on it from like Popper at the Gates of Dawn or the Division Bell album, it made me go back and listen to those albums or re-listen to those albums, and that was really cool. I think they did a really good job representing a little bit of all of their music and stuff in that album. And I don't know how we got on a big talk about Pink Floyd, but
I don't
anything
know.
flies.
I remember when Emily came out. It was like, wow, that's different.
That's one of my favorite songs too, Emily. Yeah, that's an old one. Yeah, that's on Popper at the Gates of
It's
Dawn, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
is, and it was their first. It was their first big hit. It was
yeah.
like what 1966 or something. There was another British band that was very similar called the Incredibles. Called the Incredible String Band, and they lasted for a bit of time.
I think they
Roger
had a
Williamson, I think was it Roger Williamson? I forget.
they kind of
They were
reminded
pretty good.
me of the Beatles in their early days, a little bit. Not like they sound exactly like them, but just in the I don't know, the feeling that their music invoked, like I don't know, it just felt a lot like Beatles music to me. But again, that's when I was listening to that when I was like 17 years old, so not the most informed opinion.
Well, it's like 1966 was pretty good year for music. You got Rubber Soul and Revolver out of the Beatles. You got Piper at the Gates of Dawn. You got Pet Sounds out of the Beach Boys. You got all sorts of really kind of
When
neat
did
stuff.
Jethro Tull come out? With
Tall was like late '60s, early '70s,
Okay, I thought he was in that time
and
period
then
too.
Yes was following the whole that whole operatic rock thing.
Definitely my favorite genre of music though, like 80s rock. Yeah, all day long, love it. But I was born in '82. I had a sister that was 5 years older than me, so I got to listen to whatever she was listening to growing up, you know, and so I got a good taste of 80s music, but always been my favorite.
Yeah.
What's your favorite music, Issa?
I like all different kinds of genres, but I guess what I lean to is metal. So I like 80s metal, like Iron Maiden. That's kind of my jam. I also like Bon Jovi. I'm a big aficionado of that, but I'm cool with R&B and jazz. Like I like, smooth music too. I'm cool with I'm very open. I'm actually a member of a music fraternity called PMA, Phi Mu Alpha Sinfonia. So we're all about music there. So.
That's cool.
That is cool. What about you, Will?
I like it all too. The only thing I can't get behind, unfortunately, is the banjo. Once the banjo comes in, it's too bluegrass for me.
You don't like what about the Battle of Banjos? Like that, I think that could be pretty cool. Have you heard that before?
No. Dueling pianos can be good. Dueling cellos is phenomenal. Dueling guitars is great. I can't get behind the banjo. I can do country.
I thought we were friends.
I could do rock. I can do R&B. I can do rap. I just can't get behind the banjo. The banjo's got too much
for Trump
twang.
this year?
I didn't
I'm
know
glad
Don
my
played the
camera's off,
banjo.
'cause I look like Joe.
I'm just fucking with you. I'm sorry. I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
It is funny.
Yeah, I think Eric. Was it Eric that plays the banjo? I forget.
Oh yeah, right.
If Tim Walls played the banjo, I could make an exception, but no banjo.
Not selling out for the Kentucky Atheists, though, huh?
Oh yeah, should shill it out.
Only if it's him, not a Kentuckian. No, I'm joking, dude. Hey,
I liked the Deliverance. That was my favorite part of the Deliverance.
Deliverance,
the movie. It's from you? Wow.
No, I'm joking. They could have filmed it anywhere here, though.
Oh, here, let me jump in here. Joe, the Kentucky Atheist, known liar.
Yeah, known liar. Yeah. So like the redneck folks portrayed in the movie Deliverance, are somewhat similar to some people that may or may not live in the same area I do.
Brothers and sisters of the Kentucky Atheists.
Yeah. There's the pool is small in some places, I think. So
sounds like up the county around here.
Yeah. You don't know what goes on up in them hollers.
Yeah, well, that the old. I know it's terribly poor taste, but it's like the whole "quit it, Pa, you're crushing my smokes" thing. What?
Yeah.
I gotta ask you something, Joe. What do you think about your homeboy JD Vance? Isn't he like the greatest? This is the master of the hillbilly elegy. Don't you feel like completely res?
I have to unfortunately say that's
in the words,
my homeboy in Ohio.
Yeah. I was going to say, in the words of Andy Bashir, he ain't from here. Yeah.
I love how he put on that complete like I think he has like a grandparent who's from out there. Like he went to Yale. I'm like, how do you get more bougie than that?
Ivy League redneck.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like it's all of a piece with like Ted Cruz. He went to Yale. I mean it's like come on, or Harvard. I think didn't Cruz go to Harvard?
He went to Harvard. Right, Steph.
He went to Harvard.
Yeah, he went to Harvard.
I love how all these politicians are sellouts. They're all sellouts. Like, wasn't this dude like completely against DJT, and then all of a sudden DJT takes him on? He's like, DJT is the greatest president of all time. And I'm like,
it's called money, and that's why I am all for the Tim Waltz. He was like, here, sure, I'll release my financial statements. No stocks, no real estate, no bonds. I was like, oh, a normal person. Huge fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people like him. They say he's actually pretty leftist too, so people like him for that.
I mean, he got universal school lunches, breakfast and lunch. He got tampons in every public school. He got paid family leave. Yeah, you know, he's good for me.
You know,
You're
and you know, Minnesota's just a great state for.
Well, he also
know,
did that, Steph. Did you see
leaving
what the
people
margin?
alone.
Yeah, yeah. Did you see that? What the margin he had in the House and Senate, and he was able to pass all of that?
Yeah,
razor thin. Good guy. So here's my optimism. It could be very well misplaced. And Steph, I expect you to bring me back down to earth because my inner liberal is pretty happy about this. Is if they get into office, which I now assume that they will, and they pass.
Don't.
Okay, yeah, I know. I'm still going to vote.
Played this movie before.
Yeah. I didn't think he could win against Hillary either. I ate crow. I remember I had Katie over at my house, and she's like, "Trump's going to win," and I was like, "There's no way. It's like impossible. The polls don't show it or whatever." Anyway, that's not the point. Here's my optimism: is if you're able to give people any of these positive things, whether that's food, tampons, paid family leave, there's going to be a very small percentage that are going to ride with the opposition party. They still will do it, but it won't be enough to take those rights away. So my analogy is you make $40,000, you're in the Rust Belt, it's tough. You're going to vote for the party that says government's terrible. But in the meantime, they give your child who's in public school breakfast and lunch. There is no reasonable way, in my opinion, that someone is going to be able to run opposed to that and still win at that time. So let's divide it in half. 50% vote Democrat, 50% vote Republican. Let's say 10 to 20% of that is always going to vote Republican no matter what, whether their rights are going to be taken away or expanded. They just hate the Democrats. But if the other 30% have their kids fed at the public school by these initiatives, they will not vote for someone who is promising to take those away. And that's where my dumb liberal optimism comes from.
I'm not sure it's all that dumb. And the other thing that I would add, my optimism comes from the fact that, as Barack said in his speech the other night, rather wryly, you notice how they don't call it Obamacare anymore because it's popular.
Yeah, but
and that's the thing. I don't think he did either, but that line stuck with me because
how are you going to play middle of the road compromising politics with literally 15% of them being Nazis? You don't reconcile with them. You beat them.
Yeah, and that's where I was going. The part of me that my optimism is fueled by the fact that the Democrats seem to have developed somewhat of a spine, and they're not taking the bullshit.
Well, that's because it's popular.
They're kicking these people in the balls, and not apologizing for it.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but I only agree with you to the extent that it is popular. Bernie Sanders is one of the most popular presidents ever, and they shafted him because he wasn't good for corporate interests and the real money. What my optimism comes from is if they get any type of majority and they pass any type of good legislation, there's going to be a small percentage, as Hillary would qualify it as the deplorables, that are always going to vote against the government. They're wrong. But if a need is met, like your child receiving breakfast and lunch gets filled by these cuck-ass liberal policies that I support, there's no way a majority on either side is going to campaign successfully to take those rights and policies away because it's suicide.
Well, see, the Republicans have been campaigning against the New Deal since the New Deal. And what made the New Deals most successful was rural electrification projects.
Yeah.
The TVA, the bringing rural America into the 20th century at that point in time, Social Security. They weren't perfect. Just like Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act is hardly perfect. I mean, we don't have universal health care, which is what we need as a modern industrialized nation. But it's a step in the right direction. And what it has missed, what politics in the United States in my lifetime has missed since I'll even say Eisenhower. I mean, since the 60s and that era of dedication to moving from the New Deal to the Great Society has been that level of we're determined that we can make a difference.
Well, I think
just showing that determination, it's like the Democrats were all, you're right, they're all about compromise and all of this stuff. But how can you do that when you're compromising with literal fascists?
Yeah,
it's time to call them bastards out.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. But the problem is, in my opinion, is the news organizations and the compartmentalization of confirmation bias on these people. And I don't think, because so many people do not end up voting, regardless if that's in their interest or against, which me and Joe talk about all the time, how the fuck do these billionaires get the people in West Virginia and Kentucky and Ohio to think that the interests of the billionaires are the same interests as the people who are making $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 blows my mind. But my optimism comes from if we have any type of majority and we're able to mint these positive things that will not only improve our lives, but the lives of our rivals, the Republicans, there's always going to be a small percentage that vote against their interests. There's nothing you can do about that. But once that policy is changed and it benefits everyone, there's no, in my mind, political winning strategy to remove those rights or privileges once they've already been legislated. Like my favorite that I bring up is consistently is the universal food for kids. Like if you gave that to everyone across the country, how insane would it be as a Republican for you to campaign on repealing that act? There are going to be small factions that always do. But even if you hate the Democrats, which I've watched hundreds of interviews that go, why do you call it Obamacare? I detest Obamacare, but it kept me alive, so I wanted to keep it moving forward. At that, so like that's where my optimism comes from. It's like give the people the rights and then let them campaign on taking those away. Or not rights, privileges, advantages, however you want to word it, and then make them campaign on taking that away. Because you're not going to change the mind of the 20 that hate the Democrats regardless. But if you feed enough of those kids in the Rust Belt, they're not going to vote for someone who's campaigning on taking that away.
Okay, I gotta run. This has been fun hanging out. I gotta go hatch devious plots for the transpositions, and so we'll see you over there hopefully. And thanks for letting me hang out, Joe.
I'll send everybody over around 8:00.
Steph,
be ready.
I was great to talk to you. I'm so glad I got to do it for the first time. I truly respect you, and I think you and Ember doing a fantastic job. And I'd love to do a conversation at some other point.
Sure, we can do that. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Good luck. Now you got some things to answer for, Issa.
Like what? What's up?
I don't know, man. I'm just joking. I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, you're good.
Well, point one, he has better hair than me. I want a syllogism for that. And then two, you and me are white and he is not, and I want a justification for that.
You're funny.
I like my hairstyle. The running as fast as it can away from my face move is.
Didn't you have cornrows too, Joe?
At one time, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I remember those pictures.
Yeah. I've had all kinds of different hairstyles. My hair used to be like down to my shoulders.
I actually wanted to ask y'all a question about the Roger Waters interview. Did you see the Piers Morgan interview with Roger Waters? I wanted to go back to that. I wanted to see what your feelings.
Could you summarize it for me? I can't watch Piers Morgan.
Okay, so I'll give you in a nutshell. So basically, Piers Morgan was asking about his favorite topic, which is the PNI topic. Can we talk about that here? I don't know if they.
How about this? I'll just go get the clip and play it.
What's the PNI topic?
The Middle East. Let's put it that way. It's the Middle East.
Oh God, no!
Because Roger Waters is definitely the person to ask about that.
Are we talking about Palestine or like the
yes?
Oh no, I don't want to watch this. I don't want to watch Piers Morgan get anything close to the Middle East.
But basically,
you really
in the
don't
video,
want to watch it.
Please,
it's really funny. It's a very funny scene where Roger Waters starts talking to a chair, and he's like, "See, he's so rude. I won't react. I'm not going to react. I'm not going to react to what he's saying." And I was like, "Oh my!"
By definition, that's a reaction, though. Oh my God, Issa, please, Joe, why don't you respond? I haven't seen this, but I can't imagine that it was informative, educational, good at all.
Hold on, I'm reviewing.
Oh my God.
Come on, hurry up.
Issa, you're a frequent viewer of.
What do we got?
Well, I like politics, so I particularly Middle Eastern politics, so that's something I'm very interested in.
There's an hour-long documentary about this. All right.
You know that he's not going to do it justice.
I have to
you just like to watch him step on the rake
or
what?
Yeah. I don't have enough information to comment on it.
Piers Morgan is not going to do a good in-depth analysis that's educational for anyone. Do you just like to watch the train wreck that it is?
No.
Like Schadenfreude? Or?
Yeah, it's not that. Yeah, it's not that, though. It's just like I know that how Piers Morgan is and everything, but I recall that being a really weird, strange interview where he did all kinds of weird stuff and everything. But I don't remember enough of it to comment one way or the other. Is
so
my feeling on it.
Why I like watching.
The only thing I can find on it's like an hour long, and it's somebody else. It's not the news clip. It's somebody else covering the news clip. Just in a quick search anyway. I can't find a short version of it right away.
PC, please God, do not post this in the chat.
So petrified people about Pink Floyd's Roger on Gaza, Ukraine, Putin, and more. Oh, okay. No, I didn't see this interview actually. I thought you were talking about something else. This isn't what I remember seeing.
Yeah, so Roger Waters came onto the show, and Roger Waters is a really hot take on this situation where he is a strong proponent of what's going on there as being the G word. I don't know. I don't want to get your show demonetized, so I'm being careful with the language, but let's say
it's genocide. You can say it. Say it with your chest.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just saying if there's a problem. Yeah. So basically they're talking about
this is a members only stream. You can say anything you want.
Oh, okay, cool. Fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically he talks about the question is, Roger Waters believes what's going on is genocide. And, Piers Morgan takes a different approach, and he's like, and it's a very hot topic situation because what is genocide? How do we define these terms? What do these things mean? And Roger Waters has a very strong position, and some people view him as an anti-Semite. So that's the big conflict. Is he an anti-Semite? Is
Oh,
he not an anti-Semite? That's
Why is it a conflict if he's an anti-Semite or not? Because you can mirror what the definition of a genocide is with the stats and back it up. Like, is it just because he suggested it that the people are talking about it? I'm just confused because it's objectively a genocide if you look at the UN and the death count, and also you could just look at history through the years from the inception of Israel.
So the question is, was what happened in Germany a genocide? See, this is the question. Like, usually why there's a conversation of this is genocide about body count or is it about intent? So is the intent of Israel to wipe out all the Arab population or the whole Palestinian population? If it is not, then that can't be defined as genocide, because what Germany did, what their intent was, whether they were able to do it or not, their intent was to wipe out all of the Jewish population, not just in Germany, but around the world. They had a thing called the Einsatzgruppen, where they went to Russia, they went to Poland, and they went to other countries to basically annihilate an entire ethnicity and race.
But is he basing it off strictly of Germany's definition? Because the UN has their own.
Well, and the thing is, is the UN a fair demarcator here? Because that's actually one of the problems. So
damn, that's a whole other thing.
This UNRWA is a UN, created situation, and they say that's a part of, the Hamas installation. So it's like, this is an interesting question. Well, I mean, if you read the UNRWA textbooks and stuff like that, it's very complex and it's nuanced. So this is the question. This is where there's diverging positions. So is the UN an authority to speak on this matter? And that's a question that people.
That's a fair question, though. I would grant that that's a fair question, but
that is a fair question.
So if they make that proclamation, does that make it right?
Well, let me.
You got to get past that first question.
Like if I like say like Will, the country of Will, or the organization of Will that's made up by 180 countries, define genocide and then commit genocide, does that detract from all of us agreeing on what genocide is before I go ahead and commit it? I would say that just because we determine the rules or define genocide in these actions, just because I go and then commit it doesn't mean that, I don't know, this is a topic for debate because he made the rules. Well, yeah, I'm violating my own rules at that point, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. That's a bad place to be, ain't it?
It is.
Hypocrites 101.
Violating your own rules. I mean, like that's rough. I don't know, because I feel like, first of all, there's some definitions that need to be very specific in that conversation, because
they are in the UN.
I don't know that genocide requires that you kill everyone. I mean, I think it's an attempt to wipe a certain group of people away. But
the problem is, Joe, it's very well defined in the UN document. Yeah, it's like extremely specific.
There's conflicting definitions, is what I'm saying. Yeah. So
yeah, but I'm saying, like, if the UN agrees that X is genocide, and then the member of the UN starts committing genocide, I don't think you get to call into the
go change the definition.
A question about what it is. It's like, it's genocide light or diet genocide. Like, that doesn't matter. Like, we defined it, we all agreed on it, and then you did it.
The fact that it even resembles genocide is not really great.
Problematic.
Yeah. I think, though, like,
so the question is, if Israel's intent is to do genocide, which would mean that their goal is to wipe out the entire Arab population, if this is a true statement, then there wouldn't be an Arab-Israeli population or Palestinian citizens of Israel. This is the big question that gets brought up.
Oh, I think that's true.
And that's the thing is, if they're saying, hey, you know, it's a tough war, there's a difficulty, we also have to hold Hamas's accountability in this situation. That's really usually kind of very much diminished. Is Hamas putting the Palestinian citizens at risk to be attacked by these bombs?
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's lots of tunnels. Why aren't the Palestinians hiding in the tunnels? I think there's a reason for that, and I think there's the complexity and nuance to that.
There is complexity and nuance, but when the ICC issues warrants for the Israel War Cabinet and the leaders of Hamas, that's about as black and white as it gets. Under the exact same criteria and methodology, they both fucked this up, and it's looking like genocide. It's time to give the ICC some teeth. And the only reason that's even possible is because the U.S. supplies Israel with unlimited weapons and money.
Yeah.
We're complicit in that as well. But the fact that the ICC looks at the language in the United Nations and determines both parties are at fault, these specific people under these criteria that they both agreed on, you gotta take the L. You have to. We both agreed on this. The International Criminal Court decided that we both violated these. We both go in. Yeah, that's it. Regardless if it's genocide or not, the justification is the same. It's valid and sound for both parties, regardless of which side.
I mean, anybody that commits war crimes needs to be held accountable for committing war crimes, and that includes some of the ones committed by the United States itself. I'm not excluding them.
Yeah, and that's why we don't give the ICC teeth. Because we're the police of the world, and if we know they get teeth, then our people are going down. It's a double standard.
Why would you want to go ahead and hobble yourself from the beginning is kind of the view on it. Why would you want to put yourself up to be in a bad situation when you can avoid it by not even,
especially when you own the board and 90% of the pieces on it. I'm with you, Issa. I think it is nuanced and delicate, and the history of Israel and Palestine go back a very long time. But when I'm looking at the death counts over the year and the atrocities and attacks that have been carried out, and those have been evaluated under the exact same rules as the UN by the ICC, you have to abide by those rules.
Yeah.
But an issue that I have is that I think certain people are held to certain standards and other people are not. Take a country that's and there's another country that's almost identical to Pakistan, to Israel in many ways, which is Pakistan. Pakistan was created in 1948. It was a safe state for Muslim South Asian folks, both Western and Eastern Pakistan. Eastern Pakistan became Bangladesh. There's a reason why it became Bangladesh, because there was a massacre of Eastern Pakistani people who became Bengali people, and the death toll is from 300,000 to several million people.
Yeah, it's like
several
2.5
million
people.
So this is a horrific situation, and this is in 1 year. What's happened, we would say the death count in Israel-Palestine is, in 75 years, is around maybe 100,000. That's a very high mark.
I would push back on that a little bit.
The death count. That's the death count. I'm saying
I would say that there were 63,000 children murdered in Palestine over the last 25 years.
Okay, so even if we grant 63,000, let's grant that. They killed 300,000 people. That's the minimum amount in Bengal.
Yeah, compared to
I'm just saying, I'm like, this is a drop in the bucket.
I get it.
So I'm like,
is this like a whataboutism?
It's not a whataboutism.
No, it's not a whataboutism.
I missed parts of it. I wasn't trying to attack you on it. I was just asking.
I'm saying what we need to do is we need to look at the standards that have existed around the world. We need to look at the grand scale of how many people have been killed in different conflicts. If we're saying that this is a huge amount, then let's look at the other standards so we can create a more objective framework. So I'm saying if we're looking at
evidence-based approach.
Evidence-based approach, and I feel that the Western Pakistanis' intent was to kill. I don't know. I think my position on this conflict is it's horrendous. The death toll is unacceptable because I'm anti-war.
Agreed.
So I'm against war. but I don't know if I would use the word genocide. I would just say it's not been prosecuted correctly, and there could have been a much better way of dealing with this. That's my position. But
Okay, so if
yeah.
you're speaking from a legal point of view, you wouldn't call it genocide. I can agree with that.
Well, hold on, but what I would say is that like they came together, the UN, and like specifically defined the criteria of genocide, and it wasn't eradication of all peoples everywhere.
Right.
So I disagree with their definition. I don't find their definition compelling, but I understand that if according to that definition, then it would be violated. But me personally, what the definition of genocide is, what it means is that it's the eradication of a race or an ethnicity. It's the intent, or it's the goal of eradicating a race. And if that's the intent, then Israel can't be doing that because they have an Arab-Israeli population.
So let me point out something before we move on. Let me just point out something. So today we talked about how are the rules of chess objective, right? And here we are, we're talking about something that is now loosely, I'm using the word game because there's strategy involved in things, but in this case the cost is human lives. So what we're actually talking about right now is what definition and rule governs the activity that's going on, right?
Well, wouldn't you have to mirror that with past rules versus present rules? Because
I think that's important.
I do too, but that's what he was saying. He disagrees with the definition of genocide, and I would say that's totally valid and fine. But at what point would you say that? Because like I disagree as well.
Where is the line?
Yeah, like because if the United Nations agree that this is genocide and Israel is committing genocide, but there was a genocide committed before those rules were in place, what is the mechanism to hold both accountable and why?
I don't know the mechanism that they would use for that. I mean, I imagine there's some sort of language within it that talks about, is it retroactive?
Well, I'm saying if it's in the past, we cannot hold Hitler accountable right now.
Yes, as Melissa
no,
mentioned,
I mean,
welcome to open any.
Again, I guess that gets down to how you define the words. I mean, like,
well, I'm just saying, like, so, like, the UN has clearly, in their words, which you are absolutely free to disagree with, what genocide is. It is very clear that Israel has been and continues to commit genocide. I just don't know if that agreed upon definition that applies to the now can be the same definition and carry the same weight as what had happened in the past, like Issa was saying, which I agree with too.
So it is a legal statement. Then it is actually a statement of fact that Israel has been, by the people
according to the UN,
the labels, right, of the ones who are making the labels, that they're saying that yes, they've committed genocide, they've done that thing. It's a fact. So under the law, according to the UN, yes, it's a fact they committed genocide. Now,
correct, and then
not accepting that is fine. It's just so what set of rules are you following on that, and who came up with those rules, and why are they better? That would be my question.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to let Issa take this here. But what I'm saying is the UN, including Israel and the U.S., along with many other countries, defined what genocide is. It is objectively true that Israel is committing genocide. Those findings were referred to the International Criminal Court, the ICC. They issued arrest warrants to both parties based off of this. And Issa, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were saying, like, I don't know if this genocide is based off of the modern definition, is it? But it was still abhorrent.
My position is I think genocide has a specific meaning. I think that the UN's position could be anything. I think most nation states are built on ethnic cleansing, which you could call, according to that definition, would fit as genocide. So I'm like, the United States ethnically cleansed indigenous people here. I mean, that's just how the colonies operated. There was, the Indian Removal Act is definitely that,
Objectively true.
Yeah,
I think
I
we
agree.
agree with you here. It's just I think the idea
So, yeah.
where we have to talk about is where we're going to draw the line in the sand, because the problem that I have is that Israel, the United States, and a whole bunch of others made a legislative line in the sand. They said, if you do these things, you are committing genocide. Israel violated that line in the sand, therefore committing genocide. But you can define genocide however you want, right? So, like, the genocides in the past might not have violated the UN's written ethical code now, but they still very much could have been genocide.
It's just like, I think genocide means a specific thing, and I think that's my issue with it. It's a specific thing that we saw in Nazi Germany, where the intent of Germans were to wipe out all the Jews. I don't think that that's what the Israeli intent is. I think, honestly speaking, if the Palestinians took a position of the most right-wing position that's there, if they took a position of residency, not citizenship, so that means they would have the rights of pretty much a citizen except voting power, right? They would be able to live freely there. There wouldn't be a question. They wouldn't be attacked.
I would object to that, since Israel controls all exports and imports to the country, as well as freight and water, utilities. I have a problem with that, but I understand.
I'm not saying that that's not a problematic. What I'm saying is, we're saying that is the goal of Israel to annihilate all the Arabs or the Palestinians, and I'm saying I think the most right-wing form, it's not that. If Palestinians,
I would disagree, because the most right-wing form is radical Islam, who say that all Jews and Christians will die.
Oh, well, right, but I'm talking about Israel. Is position of the.
You're talking about
not Hamas.
The
most extreme. So, like, settlers, all of that. They'd be like, dude, you can stay here. You just are not. You might be second-class citizens, which would means that they would not want to annihilate all the Palestinians.
Not ethical, but not genocide.
That's my point. That's exactly what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying.
I think that the most right-wing form may not be ethical, but I would say I don't think the intent of Israel, the most right-wing form, would be to kill all the Arabs.
Well, it would be to forcibly remove them from the land. I think is there.
If they were residents and they were not citizens, they wouldn't be forcibly removed. That would be fine. If they stay and they're like, hey, we're taking residency, you get to live here, but you're not going to be treated as an equal citizen. You won't be able to vote.
I don't know. They give their houses away to ethnically Jewish people.
But I think that the problem is because,
but that's not genocide. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree. It's not. It's problematic, and you could say there are human rights violations, and I think that would be fair. So there are human rights violations there. I would say that's fair. My problem is this word genocide being used for this situation, because I don't think that's Israel's intent to annihilate all the Arabs and Palestinians. And I get into duels with this, and people are like, how can you say that? And I'm like,
there's a lot of nuance there. So the fundamental disagreement is you don't agree with the UN's definition of genocide.
No.
Okay, that's fine. Totally. Granted, I'm fine with that. We can agree or disagree on that. I think that you are completely justified in holding that opinion.
Yeah, that's it. I take pretty more reasonable positions. I would like a two-state solution. That's my position. I would like an Israel and Palestine. You could have Gaza, West Bank, and maybe East Jerusalem. I'm fine with that. I don't think there's a problem with that. If everybody agrees. I think the religious extremism is a problem in this. So if you've seen me before, I argue, I think mystical Islam is good, but I don't agree with Daniel Hakakichu's version of Islam. It's extremely dangerous.
Don't bring his name up.
He's the Sith Lord of Islam. See my lightsaber there? He's the Sith
Lord. I don't want to hear about this. I'm going to cut that off.
You just invoke a Hakikachu?
Yeah,
I did.
I won't hear any part of that. I think that's a completely fair position. The only and I don't disagree with you. I think that is logically valid and sound, regardless if we agree or disagree, which I think we would agree on that. The only problem that I would have is if Israel wiped out my entire family, the very first thing I would think about doing, this is a hypothetical, not me personally, was starting Hamas 2.0. I understand what you're saying. Like, they're, depending on whatever definition you want to use for genocide, that's not their goal. But the method that they use to achieve their non-genocide goal is murdering tens of thousands of children along with their family. If that is happening to you, I feel like it's going to be really hard to take the position of not Hamas/Hamas 2.0.
And I hear that. I just think we have to know that this is a very nuanced situation. It was not people, the way that it's been framed, I think it's unfair, where they're just like, Israel are these evil perpetrators. Honestly, it's Jewish people who are evil perpetrators who've come and stolen the land. They're evil white people that came in, stole the land. And I'm like, it's a lot more complex than that. As a person who actually defends Islam, I know that there was Islamic imperialism and colonialism. I can't deny that. Unfortunately, I wish I could just say Muslims were just wonderful, peaceful people. There were many peaceful movements, like in South Asia and North Africa and West Africa. There were moments of very peaceful movements, but there were violent movements, which, just like Christianity, you have peaceful movements in Christianity and very violent movements.
The vast majority, though, are violent, though. That's the problem.
I think there were places that were much more peaceful, and now it's a lot better. But I get your point. They're like in Europe.
Sociologically speaking, that's what we see in almost all young religions. They have a period of
convert or kill. And Isa, I totally get and represent and I think I see the nuance in your point, and I completely agree with what you're saying. If we're going to have like a broad topic on this, there's so much history we have to dive into, with the UN and the British giving Israel to the Jewish state because of X, Y, and Z, even though a lot of palms were greased in that transaction. And I completely agree with you. And I don't write off all of the Israeli people that way. What I'm saying is the methodology they are using to achieve the goal that they think is correct is fueling hate and revenge.
I think that the way this situation has been done could have been a better way, but it's hard because you're dealing with extremely traumatized people. The Arab folks have not had leadership or citizenship or any power for centuries. So who ran the Muslim world? It was Turks for centuries. The Ottoman Empire, Turks. And oh, that's cute. And the Ottomans ran it.
The mouse ran it.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah, the mouse ran it. Yeah, Disney. But the funny thing is, a lot of these, basically, they were not able to. Arabs have not had political power. Jews have not had political power. So you're dealing with two very deeply disenfranchised groups. And this is the way to handle this. Like, I saw the debate between Javad Hashmi, Dr. Javad Hashmi, and Destiny, and I was just really disappointed. I'm like, Dr. Javad, you're a doctor. This is your field. You should know how to do research on this. And you're like giving an extremely biased approach in this. And you're like, well, I'm just going to hold every single thing that Jewish people and Israelis did in this conflict and not hold anything that Arabs or Palestinians did. I'm like, you're not going to be taken seriously.
Well, did you see the Noam Chomsky and Destiny debate on that, where he got absolutely fucking cooked?
I didn't see that.
I was going to say, I'll get your contacts from
get
Joe.
My information. Yeah, that's fine. I'll put it in the private chat too.
I'll send it to you. It's phenomenal. Like the double standard, but but I take your point. There's so much nuance over every inch of that land that there's no way you can sweepingly generalize everything. And unfortunately, the American electorate and public in general are terrible at that.
Well, and there's a lot of tragedy. I mean, I was there, and I saw what happened during 10/7. Like, I saw the aftermath, and it was horrific and horrible. And that is another major thing that isn't really discussed. I'm like, so many people, like the whole society was shaken by this, because you have a political party that agrees to a ceasefire and then kind of invades a country and then says, hey, we want to come down and do peace. I'm like, you've lost that. And there are problems in Gaza and West Bank, and we have to grant that. There are human rights issues that need to be dealt with. But the 10-7 has to be dealt with. And the excuse you see from many activists is, well, it was a response. And you can't say that.
No,
You've
you
lost
can't.
respect. You cannot
No,
say
yeah.
assault and killing and murdering anybody is okay in this situation. You have to be like, okay, this is a horrible atrocity. Hiding people, making tunnels and keeping your people above ground where there's missiles coming and holding the people there so you have more of a death count is horrific too. You can't just say what people do with Hamas, instead of seeing them as terrorists, is see them like, oh, they're just a poor disenfranchised political group. And I'm like, but they're a cartel, they're a mafia, they're doing exactly what cartels and mafias do.
I agree.
And,
I'm with you.
And I think that's the problem. Do I think what the government over there is doing in dealing with this situation is right? I don't think that this is the way to deal with this. I don't think you can just bomb Hamas out of existence, because there are too many innocent people who will die. And I'm anti-war. I'm anti-Vietnam War. I did a master's thesis on Vietnam, so I did a lot of research into Vietnam, and it was horrendous. It didn't need to happen. How many innocent Vietnamese died? How many innocent Iraqis died?
Well, that was because we wanted to flex our giant biceps over capitalism, over communism,
which is disgusting.
Outrageous. Yeah, it's not.
I'm with you on that, Issa.
And how many innocent Palestinians died? How many innocent Palestinians, Israeli? Not one Palestinian should die. Not one Israeli should die. And I think that we need peace. And I think the United States should work as a diplomat and a mediator in this situation and try to get resolution for this. And we need a resolution. We need to get to a path of a ceasefire. There needs to be a path towards that.
I agree. But why do you think the U.S. should be in that? Just because they have power? Because they are all about Israel since its formation, and I think that's a biased thumb on the scale approach. Do you think they should be there to be fair mediators, like that they have the ability to? Because I see that they could, but they won't.
Well, the thing is that the United States and Israel have a relationship, and it's important that we work with that. There's a very strong relationship between Israel and the United States, and
but we've told them to cut it out a couple times on specific issues, and they've told us to fuck off, and we still pay for all their shit.
Well, because I don't think it was done well. There was not a good diplomatic attaché that would said, hey, how can Israel feel safe? Israel needs to feel safe. That is one of the conditions. After 10-7, Israel is shaken up. I was there. It is shaken up, and people feel extremely unsafe, and there's lots of bomb shelters, and there needs to be a path for Israel having permanent safety where Israel does not need to fear any nation around Israel. I think that's a crucial point of getting peace. There has to be a space where Israel can feel safe. All the citizens feel safe. There's no fear of invasion, no fear of bombing. There has to be a negotiation of all the surrounding places, supporting Palestinians getting a place of statehood, or making sure they get nationalization, that they're able to get those rights. These are the crucial things to get to diplomacy. So people's needs need to be met. And they're not.
I agree, but this seems idealistic to me.
Oh, it is, of course. I don't deny that. But I'm just saying, I'm just saying it's idealistic, and there is a pragmatism too, because I'm like, that's the problem, is their needs are not being met, and that's why there's still crisis.
But the Israel army is cementing up wells in Palestine. Just I don't know.
I hear your point. But there's a reason why they're doing that. They're doing it because they're at war with Hamas, and they're saying we have to stop Hamas at all. That's the argument. Hamas must be stopped at all costs.
Yeah, but that's a terrible argument.
There it is. There's my problem with this whole thing right there.
That is the populist argument.
If it's at all
not a good argument with any.
But it's the same thing with the Iraq War, that the Taliban and
you act like I'm in favor of the Iraq War.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying. I'm just saying that this is the argument.
It was a shit argument for us in the Iraq War, and it's a shit argument now, is what I'm saying. And I think
let me say something about that at all cost statement, because that has been made. And the problem with that is that when we go back to our definition of what is genocide, you've now said at all costs. So it sounds to me like the intent to kill anybody that's closer in the way of that, kind of puts that intent part of it in there, that of why they may be accused of committing genocide. I think that that's a really important part, and that's where the language kind of fails us on all this, because it doesn't give you the answer to that there. What about in this situation? Because sure, if you say a genocide didn't occur, and I know I'm going way back to the beginning of the conversation, but if you say, okay, it wasn't a genocide didn't occur, and you, well, shit.
No, I got you, Joe. You violate the doctrine that you came up for genocide because it justifies the ends justify the means, then you can make that argument.
Right.
Like genocide could have occurred, or it could not have occurred, and it didn't occur, even though it violates what we agreed to that it is. But because the ends justify the means, then it's no longer genocide, because you can't commit genocide to achieve your goals.
If you hold that the ends doesn't justify the means, as the line that you're making of where it's here, it's not genocide because the intent wasn't to kill them, it was to kill other people, and they were just collateral damage with disregard to their life, because at all cost means disregard to their life. So in that case, even if you don't call it genocide, is it then genocide minus that one thing? Because every other earmark of it is genocide.
I would say the argument is that it's war. So war has it's ruthless. War is a ruthless space. So I feel that what Israel's argument is saying, we're in a state of war. So we're saying, look,
but there are still rules in the international community for war, though, right?
Well, I mean, are they followed? Look at what America.
No, I mean, they're definitely not followed by the U.S., but there's
I would say who's followed these rules of war? I mean, World War II was horrendous. How many millions of people died in this war? These people were not following rules. There were massive abuses because it's war. And you could say, idealistically, there's these rules of war. People aren't following it. People are sniping off roofs. You know, it's disgusting and gross. And that's
I think war is horrible in all contexts. Yeah,
we all would say that this is a war.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
If we come to the agreement that these are the rules and we're going to follow them, and then go ahead and immediately violate those rules
and say who pays attention to those rules,
fall back on the fact that, hey, it's war, we don't have to follow these rules, while at the same time saying, hey, in war we have to follow those rules, these rules we agreed to. That's a contradiction. I get it. This is idealistic versus pragmatic.
Yeah. So I hear that. I'm just saying that I don't think anybody agreed to these rules. I don't think Israel is agreeing to the rules of war. They're saying, look, these people didn't follow these rules. Hamas is the so-called elected. I wouldn't say they're elected. They had 30% of a populist vote. That's not really an election. They stole the government and have kept the government hijacked for multiple years, right? Since 2005.
That's arguable, but
I would say I would say they're dictators, and they're not. The Palestinians don't want them. The Palestinians, if a Palestinian protests, they're going to be destroyed. There was a man named Mohammed Ishtui. He was actually a brigadier general of Hamas. They found out he was a part of the LGBTQIA plus community. You can guess what happened to him. They brought him to a tunnel and they tortured him, and it was just horrendous. And I'm like, the problem in war is, yes, there's these idealistic rules, but people are not following the rules because they're in emotion, they're in pain, they're suffering, and I don't agree because I'm anti-war. I'm a hippie, so I'm anti-war. I think war is bad.
You've already hit oil. You don't have to keep drilling.
Yeah. So I.
But do you think there's no consequences for them breaking those rules that they agreed to? And also,
did they
in order for them?
Yes, they are signed in the ICC.
Yeah, their names on the
Israel
treaty.
and Palestine are part of the UN. They agreed to those rules, which I understand is loose because the United States agreed to those rules. We do horrible shit all the time. But what I'm saying is it's a. Sorry, Joe. What'd you say?
I said I'm just talking about from a legal standpoint, like. I'm not saying.
Well, yeah, but that's the whole point.
I think there are no good guys in this.
Yeah, I agree. But from a legal standpoint, the International Criminal Court assessed the data and issued
Yeah.
warrants for both Israel and Hamas.
Yes.
And
yes.
I get, Issa, I get your point here, but I'm saying, like, if we agree to play chess and then I cheat, that doesn't mean that your argument would go, well, he cheated, so I'm going to cheat. That's how children operate, not the international community.
At the end of the day, you have to admit there was a rule that I was supposed to follow and I didn't.
And you need to be held accountable for that.
So my question is, this is an important question. This is a distinguishing. So they were connected to the ICC, but are they like a member of the ICC? Because I'm researching this now, and it says what AG say. This is a Jewish backed situation. They said, is Israel a member of the ICC? Israel is not a member or what's called a state party of the ICC. It did play an important role in negotiations during drafting the Roman Statute. But at the end of the day, Israel did not sign the Rome Statute and join the ICC. Why? The ICC was intended to focus on the most heinous crimes, including genocide and crimes against humanity, but urged a number of Arab countries, a majority of countries agreed to add transfer of civilians into an occupied territory to the list of crimes the court would have jurisdiction to prosecute. Israel's diplomats objected that states were distorting international law and not mirroring the language of the Geneva Convention in order to specifically prosecute Israelis for the actions in West Bank. The U.S. also played a significant role in the Rome Statute negotiations, but ultimately did not join the ICC, citing concerns that it would be politicized and used to target American officials for U.S. actions overseas, undermining U.S. national sovereignty. So, I mean, this is an interesting question.
That's all correct, but you don't need to sign up for the ICC to be held accountable for it. The main thing that the ICC does is it takes a collection of the UN nations to be able to prosecute that stuff. And then if you as a nation, say Israel, or even better, the United States, if you travel to Germany, who is a member of the ICC, I fucking detain you and turn you over. In your own country, you're fine. But in international law, the people that signed up for the ICC can detain and turn over foreign nationals on their soil. So obviously, if I sign up for the ICC as the U.S. and Saddam Hussein's on my soil, I can detain him and turn him over to the ICC, but I don't have to. Not obligated. It's like the Paris Climate Accord. You have the ability to, and I would argue the morality to, but you don't have to. It's not mandated.
Yeah. I think that's the approach I was trying to take at this. I just wanted to use, like, what are the legal terms that they're using to make these statements, because I feel like that whenever it comes to words like that, there's a lot of baggage you got to look at and see how they were using it and why. And I don't think that I think that in all cases, I mean, when you're talking about war, the language and propaganda that comes out of it is very purposeful. And, you know, I'm not saying that either side is responsible for any particular propaganda, but, you know, like, that's just part of war too. And so I think the language is very deliberate, and that's why I wanted to focus on what the actual legal standard was on the words being used. And I agree with Will, though. Israel not signing up to enforce the ICC doesn't mean that they're exempt from it completely.
Well, my critique was just basically, did they sign up? Because in our conversation, we were kind of implying that they're saying, hey, there's these rules, and we accept these rules, but when we're violating them. From doing the research, it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like they're saying maybe they're a part of this system, but they don't actually agree with these rules, but they might be beholden to the rules. I can grant that, but I wouldn't say,
Issa, I got to run real quick. So the idea is the UN gets together, they come up with definitions of, like, arms dealing or genocide, which is subjective, right? You can have your definition of genocide and I can have my definition of genocide, but
obviously.
we come together, right? And we say, this is genocide. We put it in the UN doctrine. What that does is it gives the ICC teeth to prosecute what we've both agreed on, even if you don't hold to that. So like if I say selling a nuke under these circumstances is legal, and you and me at the UN, and we say selling a nuke under these same circumstances is illegal. What that does is it allows the ICC to prosecute both of us on those grounds, not on my own grounds where I've decided that it is legal. And that the ICC is all it is the teeth of what we've both agreed on. So like a good example here would be like universally it is not punishable by death if you don't wear the hijab. And we've agreed on that in the UN. But in my country, we've decided that it is punishable by death to if you don't wear the hijab. I can execute as many people as I want, but if I travel to Germany and they turn me over, I can be prosecuted under that. But in my own state, in my sovereignty, that's different.
Sure. No, I'm fine with that. That wasn't my contention. It was the thing that I said earlier, but that's fine. I get that. I understand that. I just think that when we look at the history of wars and stuff, I think that it's strange that certain places are being held to a certain level of accountability and other places are not. Syria is not. Yemen is not. Somalia, Sudan. There's all of these human rights violations that are going on.
100% agree.
And I would just
100%.
be like, I wish there was the same. I wish the ICC, the ICJ had the same passions for these things. Pakistan, 25,000 dogs are being killed a year. No one talks about that. The Baluchi people are facing a cut and run policy. The Afghanis are being forcibly removed from Pakistan. These are deep problems. And I'm like, if we care about human rights, we need to care about all human rights. And that's
agree.
just my position.
And I'm 100% with you. The problem that we run into there is the fucking United States, because the ICC, the enforcement of the ICC is mainly the United States, but we won't sign it because then our politicians and generals will get deported and probably executed, rightfully so, for war crimes. So the ICC doesn't have the teeth that it has because the U.S. won't hold their own people to the same standard as everywhere else they're being held to.
Yeah, I think that's fair. If we hold everyone to the same standard, I think that would be an important situation. I think it's important. I agree.
I just wanted to give you one last thing before I sign off here. So when I'm God Emperor of the world, everyone gets vaxxed, everyone is an organ donor. And if you serve as a capital power from the United States, every year you serve in power, you serve in prison. So you can have your 8 terms, but as soon as you're done, you serve 8 years in prison.
I love it.
That's so
funny.
funny.
And if you want to be a cop in this nation, you have to pass the bar. Those are my 4 executive orders off the bat, and then I can work it out with you guys later. But that's
do I get time served for what I've already done?
Yeah.
Okay. We're good.
But if you want to be a cop, you're passing the bar. I won't have 19-year-olds with no college degrees settling domestic disputes. Not in my country.
My problem with cops isn't 19-year-olds with no college degrees. It's them only getting like 10 hours of training a year. And
people who want power shouldn't have it. Cops want power.
Cops are treated like they're military, and they should be into de-escalation and
tell that to the Republicans. Hey,
no,
Joe,
I know.
Issa,
I know. I mean,
I gotta
get
run.
It.
Hey,
Peace.
Joe, will you get me Issa's contact?
It's in the private chat.
Yeah, you can get all. Yeah, it's all there. Feel free to reach out.
Just copy and paste it. But yeah, I got it anyway. So you can just holler at me. It don't matter.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah.
Hey guys, it was awesome talking with you. Joe, thanks for letting me on. Issa, a lovely
Pleasure.
conversation. I cannot wait to talk more with you.
Pleasure.
You
Have a
should come
great rest
back
of your
and
night,
just
guys.
talk to Issa sometime, Will. You come back and you and Issa have a big long discussion.
I
just about this.
should. Issa, are you an atheist as well?
No.
Isn't that this it's actually strange. Do you know how I got connected to this?
I would be happy to.
This is gonna blow your mind. I know you have to go. I debate for Islam. I have been a debater for Islam on Modern Day Debates. I debated against Matt Dillahunty, Apostate Prophet, David Wood, and Mark Reed.
I'm sure I've seen one of the. I'm 100% positive I must have seen you then.
So I on Modern Day Debate. So I've had really interesting conversations, and more than debates, they're more like dialogues. So we kind of
they
have
should,
deeper...
as they should be, with mutual respect. Unless you bring up Daniel again, then we're gonna have a big
Yeah.
fucking problem.
Fuck
Well,
that.
they wanted me to debate him. They wanted me to be the anti-Hakakichu, and
not
it
do
never
that.
happened.
Do not do
I
that.
think it would be very hard because you have to, because it's he says some really reprehensible things.
Yeah.
Like,
There's
they
a lot
asked
of
me
rhetoric.
questions. They
Every
said,
other word out of his mouth is indefensible. Do not do that.
yeah,
I beg
it's
you.
pretty horrific. I'm gonna be honest with you, it was horrific what I heard him saying. Like, they asked me because they think I believe the same things. They said, "What do you think about the LGBTQIA community? What do you think about beating women? What do you think about
Tribalism.
people
Yeah.
who leave the religion of Islam? What do you think about all this stuff?" And I said, "Well, I mean, I believe in freedom, and I believe, I think all of these communities have a right to live, and there's nothing wrong." And they were so funny because they went down the list. They're like, "So what do you think about this verse in the Quran?" And I'm like, "Well, I think it's a spiritual book. Like, I think the Bible is a spiritual book, and it has individual meaning for the person. That's where I stand in religion and spirituality." People are like, "Well, it has objective meaning." I don't think so. I think it's subjective, and I think if these spiritual texts help people, that's the important point, and that's where I
could have
stand.
sworn that I thought the Quran was the literal word of God.
Well,
Maybe.
if you read the Quran, I've studied Arabic too. I'm not a master of Arabic, but I've read the Quran in Arabic
You're
too.
talking
But
to a white guy. You don't have to impress me.
I'm just explaining that I have understanding of this to a degree. Reading the Quran, it's poetry. So when you read poetry, if you read like William Blake, you read Shakespeare, are these
So
things
just
very
to be
clear?
clear, it is not the literal word of God. You don't
Well,
in your belief.
In my belief, it's poetry. So it's, what does that mean? I don't know what the little word of
That's
God
not a
means.
no.
Well, no, well, the thing is, it's kind of it's more a kind of a what you said, is it the literal word of God? I would
Yeah.
say it is more of a no, because I don't know what that, like, how does God have words? Like, this is a way of humans understanding the divine, I think.
This sounds like you could argue for anything you want from it based off of
I
your
mean,
subjective interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, if it's just like poetry, then artistic
Well, it's
license all over the place, right?
Well, but that it is. How many are Muslims fighting and killing each other? Yes or no?
Yes.
If they are, it's because they say the Quran means different things.
Yes.
The Quran is not, it's not straightforward. Anybody who tells
I
you that
agree.
is full of it. Like, for example, like you read like, let's see, a chapter, a surah, it says
Have you talked to Nadir?
yeah, I Nadir, and we've been on, because I was on Matters Now, the back channel.
Yeah.
Nadir basically was like, he believes it's scientific. I don't believe the Quran is scientific.
not.
Right.
What about
I-
apostate prophet?
Apostate Prophet and I had a debate. It was my first one, actually.
All right, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and not watch that one, but we can talk later.
But I think it was a great conversation that he and I had. But
Well, he's a very, very charitable, a good human being, I would argue. So even if it's not, I would give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm not as well. I used to be very well versed. I had most of the Bible, if not all of it, memorized. I had probably about 50% of the Quran memorized when I was in high school because I was a neck-bearded edgelord.
you were an edgelord.
Edgelord. All right.
I'm much better now.
I can tell.
Yeah, I would be happy to talk about that with you. I just don't understand. And you don't have to, of course, answer. I eventually have to run.
No, I know you have to run, but this is
I-
an interesting point before you have to go. But what's your question before you
please
go?
go ahead. No, I mean the question is like it always boils down to methodology. So
Sure.
for me, like if we have a disagreement on whether
Will's an engineer.
joke, whatever, man, you're high.
Yes, I am.
Will, did we meet before? Did you go on the were you debating flat earth?
No, I never debate. I don't. I'm behind the scenes. I live curiously through Joe. Joe helps me meet interesting people that I get to talk to. I am a huge fan of Maya, and Ember is probably my favorite right now. But the reason I always the reason I wanted to this question is the specifically the methodology, because
Sure.
you're clearly a completely rational person from my interaction with you. I like to think that I am. I can come to the conclusion through a valid and sound argument that I think that baked potatoes are the best food. And you can
Sure.
use the same methodology to come to a completely different conclusion. Pizza's the best food.
I agree.
And we can dissect that methodology and then compare it. But even if we disagree, as long as it's valid and sound, I can totally respect your opinion, and I hopefully you could do the same. The
Sure.
problem I have is when you apply that exact same methodology to holy books. If you dissect the Bible, which definitely contains multitude of internal contradictions, which I'm much more familiar with, still not my neckbeard high school level, proves it's logically unsound, I have to assume that the Quran also contains contradictions. And even if it didn't, even if it was completely validly sound, you could compare that with any holy text that's also validly sound. And if you apply that methodology, how can you determine the truth value over one rather than the other?
So I'm a perennialist. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but perennialists believe that we're all on different routes and we're getting to the same goal. So it doesn't matter what text you use. If you try to be a good person and use this text and it helps you become a good person, that's the goal. I don't believe that any of these texts are absolutely true. I think it's a ridiculous position.
Well, then I would counter that with, why don't we look at the happiness index, the economic freedom index?
I'm fine with that.
And then apply those principles and philosophies, which overwhelmingly are atheists, to the rest of the world.
I think it's fine. I think whatever goal, if we're living together and we're connecting, I don't have any problem with that. I had a conversation with Matt Dillahunty and we came to an agreement. You know, I said the most ideal Islam and the most ideal atheism, they're just not really, they could be compatible with each other.
Well, then I would ask, what is your defense of Islam? Because I can cherry pick every good part of the Bible and ignore the bad stuff and come up with a great method. And you could do the same thing with the Quran.
So right? If you see in my debate with Apostate Prophet, I engage this where I say, I don't think there is an Islam. I think there are many forms of Islam. See, that's the thing. People believe that there's this one form of Islam. I don't think that exists.
No, I was going to ask you, are you, I mean, there's Shiite and all kinds of different ones. But that's irrelevant to truth.
Well, I don't believe that there is an objective truth in religion. That's my position. I don't think that exists. And that puts me in conflict with people who do believe that. But progressive
doesn't the holy book that you're defending specifically say that is a fact?
No, that's just an interpretation.
Islam is the truth, the light, the way.
Well, it's an interpretation. There's a billion interpretations.
You're incredibly rational in the fact that you're able to argue that and articulate it correctly. What I would have you think on in the meantime is, what are the implications of having that exact same worldview, but rather than being someone who's power hungry, sadistic, satanic, they could use your same exact methodology to achieve their goals, with your goals being pure and coexisting, but they could use your exact thought process to achieve the opposite.
I recommend a game that you should play. It's called Ultima 5. Play Ultima 4 and Ultima 5. They're PC games. In Ultima 4, you're this character called the Avatar, and you go out and you have to, it's kind of like ideals of all religions. It's secularism, and you go out on the land and you promote these ideals, right? And what happens in the next game is that these same ideals get manipulated and twisted into evil perspectives. And I think that that's how it is. That's why I brought up Hawk, because in that situation, there is a spectrum. Islam has darkness stuff in it. I'm not going to say it's perfectly good,
right?
You know, If you have things like, child marriage, that's a problem. That's not good. And if there are Muslims who believe in child marriage and use the text to defend that, that's a problem. And I say that's a part of the spectrum.
Yeah,
So
but
that's the thing.
this is the key point. This is what I mean. I always beg Joe to give me in B.S. Lewis, and he goes, "There isn't one." You use the same methodology. If you're using the same methodology to come to your ideas, which you think are
He's
correct,
an engineer.
and someone uses the exact same methodology to come to ideas which you think are wrong, how do we dissect the correct way to analyze the text through methodology?
I don't know if there is a correct way. That's my problem. That's my contention. I think you have different ways, and you just have to accept it.
Do you believe in God?
Me, I mean, I believe in a higher power, sure, but I don't know. I wouldn't say I understand, completely fathom what that is. This is why Matt Dillahunty called me an atheist. But I'm honest about that. I'm like, I think, I believe that there's something bigger than me.
That's why I like Isa.
Isa, I'm pumped that we got to talk. This is fucking eye-opening to me. I've never ever talked to someone who knows the Quran who behaves like you, and I wish there was more of you. But the problem that I have, it boils down to the methodology, because if I use a methodology to come to French fries are the best food, and you use the exact same methodology to come to a different conclusion, and both of them can be defended, and both of them are logically valid and sound, you don't get to tell me that my methodology is wrong. So when I apply this to the Quran, I can use my interpretation, my subjective interpretation of the Quran to justify child marriage.
Sure.
You obviously have a problem with that.
Yes.
Which I would agree. Again, I'm on your team here. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. You use, I assume, the same subjective interpretation of the Quran to say that child marriage is incorrect, not justifiable.
That's correct.
But because our methodologies are the same, the conclusions do not follow. So what we need to do is we need to come up with a methodology that you can imply and that I can imply. And regardless if it's objectively true, they should both arrive at the same conclusion. If they do not arrive at the same conclusion, we should be able to dissect specifically the methodology and figure out which points we don't agree on. If it's objectively true, it'll be sound and we can do it. If it's not, then it's subjective. What I'm hearing from you is it sounds like most of the things that we're going to disagree on, regardless of religious text or maybe even ethical dilemmas, is going to be subjective rather than objective.
Sure. Yeah. So my position is I don't think there is an objective reading of the Quran. So that's or any holy text. I think it's completely subjective.
But by that definition, couldn't I use the Quran, the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita to justify anything I want?
Sure, you can. I don't deny that.
Do you think that's a good way to move through the world or base a system on?
I don't think it's good or bad. I just think that's the way it is. I think that's just how philosophy, anything is, and I think it's okay to be subjective. I don't need answers. I don't need absolutes. I don't only sit.
I agree. I'm a
fallibilist.
I'm a fallibilist too. But you said you do debates where you defend Islam, and if you don't think there's an objective way to read any holy book, and everything is subjective, and therefore you can draw any conclusion, based off whatever holy book you read. Is that the best way as a species that we advance, promote human flourishing? Why would we entertain your methodology? Pitch me that. Pitch me if all holy books are subjective and we know objective things exist and we can set up systems where things are objective, like the rules of chess. Why should we pay any heedance to what a holy book says?
It's a good question. I don't necessarily grant that there are objective things. I think these are human standards, and those are also subjective. The rules of chess are subjective. We just grant them as true, thus they are true. Same thing with
Is
money.
gravity subjective though? Like is
Well,
the strong and weak force? Are you confusing prescriptive with descriptive?
When you're talking about, so first of all, we've compared two different things. You're talking about laws. So these things, what we call gravity and Strong's law, are terms that we as humans are in perceiving these forces. We don't actually absolutely know, but we are, as our limited human framework has done with our limited human sciences, have granted these things. So things are existing, but we're talking about human sociological things, which are subjective. So everything that we do as humans are subjective. So you could say, yes, there are standard rules that exist in the universe, but they're separate from us as humans. We can try to understand them. We give them language. We give words and terms to them. We say, okay, gravity means this, this means that. But talking about chess, that's completely subjective. It's a human game that we created. We made up the rules, and we came together and said, okay, these are the rules. That's
Is
subjective.
the law of identity objective or subjective?
Well, these are labels and terminologies that we're explaining phenomena that we see. So
that we can prove exist.
Well, we've tested through our limited human sciences, and we're saying, okay, these things.
You're retreating to fucking solipsism, dude.
How is that solipsism?
Everything around us, everything that we can describe, is all through our brains.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all through our brains,
Sure.
but we have multiple different ways we can measure it independent of our brains. Our brains just interpret the data. That's solipsism. You are saying, well, how do you know that gravity is 9.8 meters per second if everything you see is through your eyes and the instruments that you make?
So I don't believe that that's my position. My position was
okay.
That isn't what I stated. What I stated is there are things that exist around us. We have used human means to understand what these things are. We have given them labels. We've given them terms. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'll grant that. But the point is, I think there was an unfair kind of situation here. We talked about human anthropological, sociological things, and then we're talking about hard science rules. You're conflating both of these things and saying they're the same thing. I don't think they're the same thing. No, I don't think religion is objective.
Independent of the mind.
I don't think religion is objectively independent. It's just up to each person.
I'm fine with that. I want to talk
and
about
philosophy,
hard science.
Okay.
Are things true independent of minds?
I don't see why not. I mean, sure.
Okay.
So if things are true independent of minds, and we can establish that, and we can measure that, and we come up with a methodology, the best one being novel testable predictions.
Okay.
That's one way to view the world.
Sure.
You, in your, I don't want to categorize it as a worldview, but how you've debated in the past is being able to subjectively interpret any holy book however you want.
Yep.
Okay. Which method, if we're comparing the two, is best and why?
So I don't think it matters. I think it's an irrelevant point. I don't care. The point is, what I'm saying is we can't take the standard of hard sciences and explaining gravity to try to explain what is the right way of reading Harry Potter. What's the right way of reading, C.S. Lewis, right? What's the right way to read Chronicles of Narnia? I have no idea.
I'm not arguing that. I'm arguing it as a way to explain the universe around us. You are internalizing it and turning it into poetry and saying which poem is better because we can measure gravity. Totally different.
Okay.
I'm arguing there's an objective world that exists around us that we can measure. You grant. There is a subjective religious text that we can interpret however we want.
Sure.
You also grant. I'm saying if we are going to figure out the best way to move forward, which methodology is better and why? And your response was, well, what's the best way to read Harry Potter? No. That has nothing to do with the actual laws and reality we can measure around us.
Okay, I'm confused here. So what do you mean the best way moving forward? Are you saying is the atheist method? It's still a human subjective interpretation. You could say I think it's such an arrogant hubris to be like, you know.
I'm not saying atheist method. I'm saying the method used to determine one thing is objective. We can measure, blah, 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 blah. It follows all the way down.
But how does this have to deal with human values and anthropology? This is where I'm missing. You brought me gravity. What does this have to do with human interactions and human values? This is the problem. You're bringing up.
I'm not. I'm talking about comparing methodologies.
And I'm asking, what is the methodology? Methodology of what? What are we measuring?
Of determining what's true.
Determining what's true of what? If you're saying if there's gravity or reality of what though? Like reality of how we engage in human, but that means nothing. That's like it's ad reductio.
You are layering this on top of nothing that I said. I said we have a methodology. I would call it the scientific method. It's how we determine what is different from our imaginations from the real world. That's I think, in my opinion, the best methodology of determining what is real versus what is in our head. You argue that the Quran, I don't know what position you take. I know that it's very rational, but you are arguing that any interpretation of the Holy Book can be rational depending on how you read it. You're against child marriage, but you can take the same Holy Book and argue for child marriage. Where I'm saying in nature, I can't take gravity and say this is an objective fact. It's observed, it's measured, it's 9.8 meters per second squared on Earth. You have no justification for interpreting that data and saying, nah, it's 13.5 meters per second squared. So what I'm saying is, if we're going to interpret stuff moving forward, which methodology should we use? And you're saying, how do you read Harry Potter correctly?
No, that's not the point. That's a straw man. So the point is, I'm going to explain the point of what I have with your problem, with my problem with what you're saying. You're saying, look, here's hard sciences, here's gravity. I said, fine, cool, we'll grant that. I'm talking about human relationships. You have not engaged that at all. You keep repeating this methodology point. Okay, so what? What is the point? What is objectively true for what is good and moral for humanity? That is the question. I'm saying this is subjective. There is no objective, rational position on this. Every single point can be twisted. You could say, is killing wrong? Depends on the situation. If I defend my house, I could say that that's good.
This is easy. This is a super easy concept. Have you seen the show Fallout?
We asked him. You talked to me about that before. I said I've seen clips of it.
All I say we do is we come up with whatever system you want. We make 50,000 different systems. We set a specific criteria, which is subjective, but we would all have to agree on this, like chess. I would say well-being, health, economic freedom, happiness. I don't fucking know. Food security, sustainability. We all agree on this, and we try a million different systems, and whatever system gets closest to the goal is objectively the best.
I wouldn't call that objective. That wouldn't be my standard of what I would consider objective, but I hear your point. I'm like, okay, so you're not really taking any position different than what I'm saying.
What is objective to you?
So objective means that it's independently true despite everything else. What that is it's just like, okay, well, out of all the subjective things, this thing worked the best. Okay, cool. I wouldn't say that's the independent. Maybe it worked based on the conditions of the society. So each society has different conditions.
The conditions are the exact same. Do you know what a control group is?
Of course. I do research.
So you know that something can be objective based off of a control group, based off of a criteria that we set. Like if we kill 99.9% of the bacteria, it's objectively good to kill that bacteria, right?
Yeah, but I don't think, I think where the problem comes up is science doesn't give you that answer like that, though.
I agree.
There are objective, there's ideals that are objective that we hold, like the various laws of nature and stuff. But whenever science comes to that conclusion, it's never actually objective. It's just, this is what we observed and this is how we observed it.
Sure, I agree. I grant that.
I would grant that too.
The problem that I have is that he can grant and has done it that you can determine anything based off of your subjective opinion of a text of any holy book. That is an insane way to live your life.
Why?
Because you can come to any conclusion based off of the
That's
same
fine.
reasoning.
I don't care. I think all people do that. It doesn't bother me. My problem is if you hurt people,
think
that's
you're
the
right.
problem.
Yeah, but what is that based off of? Because I can argue based off whatever text you're going to pull from that
Sure.
hurting people is good.
That's
So-
true. And that's what happens in society. That's why you have the
Yeah.
Republican Democrat debate. So Republicans believe safety is the absolute. They believe no matter what, you must have safety. Democrats believe in freedom. Yeah.
That is irrelevant. The point
Why?
is you get the most amount of people to agree on the best action or the most desirable action, which
Okay.
is subjective.
Sure.
I'll steal Joe's word, human flourishing.
Yeah.
If you can take that objective and use the same text to argue for it and against it, versus if we take an atheist approach, something that we can measure, which is also subjective, as you would argue that all of our human senses are, and point in the correct direction, those are not the same thing. And you are arguing that they are.
I don't know what the atheist perspective is. Stalin, Mao Zedong, they claimed that they were atheists too. And they said, this is the atheist truth. I think this is ridiculous. People have different values. And like you said, I don't think there is an objective reality. I think we probably all
Don't
agree
think there's
here.
an objective reality?
No, I don't. I think that like, for example, I am going to resonate and agree with leftists. My perspective, I believe in the environment. I believe in human rights. I believe
Why?
in LGBTQIA because that's my point of view.
Why
I just
do
think
you believe in them?
because I think it's right. I
Yeah,
don't
Mark,
need.
I
I don't.
got
That's
you.
my
No,
position.
I want your justification. I want your justification. Why do you believe those things? What is your justification for that?
Because I think it's good. It's really simple. I think it's good. That's my ethical standard. Is my subjective ethical standard. Certain people relate to me and we agree. Some people don't. I think it's
So
better
what
for
if you
society.
think genocide is good?
Huh? I don't think it's good.
Hypothetically, your justification is I think it's good, therefore it's good. I'm asking you the hypothetical now. You now think genocide is good. You should eradicate all of the Jewish people. This is it's a hypothetical. You have to fucking just walk through
Fine.
this.
I've
Why
done
is
laws,
that
sure.
good?
So
Why is
I
that
could
good?
say what I could argue is and say, well, this group of people has been a menace to society. They have destroyed the societal well-being.
No,
They're
you're just
stealing our
making claims.
resources.
Those are assertions. I want to know your justification.
That is the justification.
No,
though.
you've
So I'm saying
decided this group of people is bad arbitrarily because you decide everything arbitrarily. Why is this destruction of the Atlanteans good? Because your justification for deciding that environmentalism is good is your opinion. You just said it is good. I want to know your justification for the genocide of the Atlanteans.
I mean, I was making the argument. The argument is that you would first have to describe. You would say that these Atlanteans are destroying society.
Is
They're
that
creating
justified?
problems. So
Is that a claim
in
or
the
is it justified?
in the worldview, it's justified to me because I believe that's the same thing with Nazis. They believed what they were doing was right. I think what they did was wrong. I think it's subjective. That's my position. So
wait, just to recap, you think environmentalism is good because you believe environmentalism is good, and you think the Nazis are bad because you believe the Nazis are bad. And then when I ask
in my
you to
worldview, they are.
justify-
In my worldview, they are. But the thing is,
Yeah, but what's your justification? This is the
but
methodology.
I
is the
already
most
explained
important
what the
thing.
justification is, and then you just scoffed it off. I said
Your justification and methodology is because you feel it in your heart of hearts.
Yeah,
Well-
that's called a moral emotivist. Yes, that's called a moral emotivist. There's a class of people. In fact, Alex O'Connor, the cosmic skeptic, is a moral emotivist. I just wanted to
I didn't
really
know that, Mark.
quickly. Yeah, that's okay. I really want to bring up something quickly. There's no atheist moral system, and I got to go really quick. But I just
I
wanted
agree
to
with
say
you.
that-
I 100% agree. I agree
yeah,
with you.
atheism isn't a moral
I agree.
system. It
I
doesn't
agree with
give
that as-
any kind of moral
Mark,
stance at all. Yeah,
First of all, I'm a huge fan. I'm super glad you joined and I got to talk to you.
I
agree
can't
with that as
stay.
well.
I got a dash, but yeah,
I was just interested in the methodology. I
Yeah.
don't think saying something is bad because I don't like it and good because I like it is a good system or methodology to come to that. And Issa was I agree in climate change because I agree with it, and I agree genocide is bad because I disagree with it. And my question was, okay, well, let's play devil's advocate. Now you agree genocide is good. Paint me a picture of your justification. He goes, well, the first thing I would do is demonize the opposition. I'm like, yeah, that's great for political.
Why is human flourishing good?
I don't define it as good.
Okay, so really, the thing is that our standards of human flourishing, a moral, a motivist may put the opinion that goal is emotively given. It's sort of what we feel like we want. And it feels good to want that. That's what they'd put across. I would probably argue against that there's more of a cognitive
Mark,
process
not to cut you
involved.
off there, but the idea was
that's okay.
to do 50,000 different fallout shelters, every single one of them coming up with a different moral system. Based off of the same moral systems we agree on. This was just basic, economic freedom, length of life, happiness, whatever else you want to put in them. And then based off of how those vaults, flourished, that we could pick the correct one. And I was saying that is a much better argument than Issa's circular was going, I think this is wrong because I think this is wrong. And I go, well, yeah, that's subjective. And you argue everything is subjective. You argue that you can come up with any conclusion, whatever you want from whatever holy book you want. So how do we determine and dissect the methodology between a Calvinist and a Christian or whatever different? I
would argue that Calvinist is a Christian.
I really wish I had more time. I'd really love to get into this discussion. I probably shouldn't have come in because I had so little time. But I hear you. Well, I just wanted to add that thing, and I get what you're saying. But if somebody wants to say that order is the goal that they're after, so a meta-ethical sort of framework that they're after, that just pure order. It may be that a brutal dictatorship in one of those vaults may produce the most order, but not the most flourishing of humans, as in, the greatest happiness principle, for instance, the greatest amount of contentment, the sanity of the people occupying the vault may not be the thing that they're after.
I agree. That's why I was talking with Joe. I don't know if you caught it. Are the rules of chess objective rather than subjective? Because I would argue, yeah, I agree that because they cannot be measured, but the methodology can be measured. You can dissect a chess algorithm based off of all of the simulations they run and the pieces on the board, which one is the best moving. And by best, I mean ability to capture the king. And I said, okay, fucking fine. Apply that to morality, and we can do the same thing as long as we agree on a subjective standard. Then we could make objective rules to achieve the best outcome through experimentation. What I'm saying is his fucking insane thing that he argues is you can order or you can rationalize whatever you want from whatever holy book you want. And I said, yeah, that's fine. Now apply that to our collective standard on this, because I can
agree
argue.
with you. I agree with you. I think that using a methodology that shows, but I didn't really hear the conversation, so I'm not going to comment. And I really got to go. I'm so sorry.
I'm glad you started your day here, Mark. Good to see you, man.
I probably shouldn't have. I couldn't avoid it, Joe. I said I'm not going to come in. I'm not going to come there. I did.
Hey,
but Will,
I'm
I don't disagree. It's just so I'd probably avoid talking about the atheistic morality because it doesn't have one. It's got no
Right.
You might want to keep to secular, humanist, maybe scientific. But science doesn't deal with morality either.
I know. I thank
Yeah.
Mark. Also, your feedback is incredibly appreciated. You're right. It's not an atheist morality. The thing that I want to dissect and get to the root of is the methodology of both. And if you can argue that this methodology can come to multiple different conclusions, including child marriage and against child marriage and for climate change and against climate change, that is not a good
I think it's human, though. The problem is it's
then
human.
maybe you're talking about ethical standards and not moral standards, but I'll leave you with that. So I got to go. I'm so sorry.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you. Nice to talk to you. Nice to meet you.
So my problem with what you're saying, Will, is you're trying to say, hey, these holy books, people have multiple interpretations. That's a problem. But atheism, it's objective and it's rational. And I'm like, no, every human interpretation. I'm very consistent. I'm like, everything, it's human interpretation. It could be a holy book. It could be secular humanism. You're going to have different standards all across the board. There is no objective. And you can't prove me wrong on this. There is no objective standard. I've never seen it. What is the objective society?
Solipsism for that, but yeah, you can.
There's no absolute good society. You have people with secular societies who are religious,
but you're going to have to retreat to solipsism for that.
Why would I have to retreat to solipsism?
We can observe the objective speed of light. We can observe gravity.
But why are we going to natural laws? You are escaping and you keep retreating to these hard sciences. I'm saying stick with anthropology, stick with sociology, stick within this is the wheelhouse you have to stick in, not with gravity. We're not talking about gravity. We're talking about what is the most ethical thing for society. And I feel this is the problem. You said, hey, this is ridiculous that you said people have different interpretations of the Quran and different. Huh?
Isa,
foul on the field.
I love
what's the foul? Where's the foul?
No, yeah, hold on.
What's the foul? Where's the foul?
That's not what I'm doing. No.
Hands.
Not foul on the field. No. Issa, what I'm saying is, if you have a methodology that can rationalize anything that you want, it's not a good methodology.
But that's everything, though. I'm saying that's everything. Don't see there's any difference.
And I'm saying compare that with objective things that are true and that we can measure and that you objectively admitted exist.
Oh, I see gravity, fine, but that has nothing to do with human society. That's my point.
I'm not arguing that. Oh my God.
So then what are you? So then what is your argument about the Quran, dude? Like you have no argument. You're like the Quran has a bad methodology. It's a baseless methodology, and I'm like, but you don't have one.
Oh my God. Okay, listen. Objective things exist, right? And you agree.
Yeah, but that's fine. I already granted that.
And you can take any holy book,
yeah,
and interpret it however you want. You agree with that? Okay,
fine.
Perfect. Okay, so we have two different ways. Here's my epistemology. So, if you I'm almost done. Okay.
You're being too loud and aggressive.
Okay. I'm being too loud and aggressive, guys.
Are you on a live?
Yeah.
You best quit raising hell on my channel, Will. You.
So here's what I'm saying, and here's where the chess analogy comes in. You and me agree the rules of chess, if we both agree on them, are objective. We have to abide by those rules, right?
We accept the rules of that. Whatever term you want to use, that's fine. I grant that.
Okay. Then you can analyze every move after that as either being positive or good, helping capture the king, or negative, bad, hindering your capture of the king, right?
Sure, I grant that.
Okay. So my thing is, you take an infinite amount of scenarios, you have an infinite amount of religious secular dogma to raise these scenarios in these isolated areas, but we agree on the same basic concepts. The rules of chess. The rules being, just for example, I haven't hammered these out, human flourishing, which is again subjective. I would say economic freedom, medical freedom, fucking education. I would argue universal basic income. And you look at all of the things and how they do based off of the goal that we all share. You with me so far? Which societies achieve that goal that we all share?
If that's the goal, see, that's the thing. What I said is our standard. We agree. We have the same standard. Other people have different standards. Other people believe law and order is the correct standard. And they would say, if people have universal basic income, I don't care. If the law and order is not present, then we have failed. If there isn't moral, ethical.
We're on the same team here.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. I would agree.
I know. I would agree. I would agree with that too. I'm not arguing against the fucking Republicans. I'm arguing against the religious right now.
Let him.
And I'm
he's
saying
going to
we
agree
have
with you in a second if you just let him. He's trying to agree with you. He's going to tell you where you differ at, though, is where he was going. I
Never
believe.
mind then.
Well, I'm just saying he was trying to answer you. It wasn't that he didn't answer you. He was trying to that time anyway. Just being fair. I think, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I think where you were going with that is you do agree on all these things, but you just have a different conclusion of what it's supposed to be, what it's supposed to look like. Like you're.
Well, I think that we have the same. What I'm trying to say is there's many different worldviews, and I don't know what is the objective one. I know the one I agree with. And it happens to be, it's funny, my worldview would align mostly with atheists. I would say secular humanists and atheists are mostly, from at least in the internet spectrum, we agree about what we view the world to be, right?
Yeah.
And most atheists, from what I've seen, don't necessarily deal in absolutes. They're like, look, I believe that I don't need a world with God. And I say that's fine. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I mean, that's fine. But, I will respect other people having their religious views, at least the ones that I've seen here in the United States, as long as it doesn't infringe on my point of view.
Well,
I'm like, I agree.
But okay.
I agree with that. I'm like, this is fine. I think this is an okay worldview. And it doesn't matter if the leader is a Christian, a Muslim, or a Jew, or a Hindu, or a Buddhist. Doesn't matter. This is fine. Or a Rastafarian. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, right.
We live in peace together. That's the point. And that would be where I agree, because I believe in that kind of worldview. Some people don't believe in that worldview, and they would say you're wrong because my religion needs to dominate everyone else, and everybody has to listen to what I say, and my interpretation of this religion is true.
Right.
I'm like, okay, that's your interpretation. Joe looks really tired. We better let him go, Will. And I know you have to go too.
He's 500 milligrams.
Oh, you're high. You're high. Okay.
Yeah.
Your eyes are glazing over. I'm like, oh, are you sleeping? No,
I was
Lisa,
for a minute, but I'm great.
I love you. I'm gonna buy you a drink, but I just don't understand your methodology because I'll let you finish. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to hear it because it doesn't make any sense to me.
My methodology is what is the best for human happiness. That's what I care about. So what I view is what is the best for human happiness and people having individual rights. These are the things that I value and I think are important. So the thing is, what I defend in Islam is not that I defend that Islam is the best religion or it's the true religion. I'm defending that Islam is not the worst thing ever. That's the problem. Most people think Islam is a garbage pit of ideas. And I'm like, there's good in this religion too. And I think people need to see that. That's what I defend. I don't defend that it's the absolute best reality for existence. So that needs to be understood. And I would do that with most religions. I could defend Judaism, Christianity. I think there's good in all these traditions and they're good for society too. They can be.
Yeah. You're not going to find many believers with a view like Isa's. That's for sure.
Yeah, Isa, and I would agree with that. I would agree with that, but I would say that the methodology, regardless of how you interpret it, to come to whatever conclusion in Islam is flawed.
Well, let me.
And
let
in
me
fact, I would
interject
argue
real quick. Because this is the outcome. This is the outcome I told you, right? Because there isn't really, because at some point, the person who believes, sure, they may have some methodology for arriving at certain parts of it or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's just what they believe. There, at some point, that leap takes place. There's required at some point a belief in something that you don't, you just don't have evidence to say is true, and that's why there isn't an answer, because the methodology.
Joe, I will grant that. I'm happy to grant that. The problem I have is when people defend it.
Oh, right. No, I agree. I get what you're saying there.
Yeah. No,
I think we all agree on that.
I will defend your ability to defend whatever batshit insane thing you want to do. Yeah. The problem I have is when it influences people to believe the irrational, which we get into if you take any argument and do a reducto on it, it's always an argument from ignorance, and he's admitting it here. So you can believe whatever you want, but I don't want it to spread regardless of its good qualities. Like fucking Jesus Christ. Stem cells kill most cells, and they can also regrow your arm. I don't do stem cell hate. I care about the methodology. And if you agree your methodology can be used for good or evil with the same methodology, it shouldn't be advocated for.
I think evidence-based conclusions are more common now, but I think that, again, at some point there's always going to be like somewhere where you've got to make that jump and just say, well, this is what I think is true. Now, like,
but that's unjustified.
No, I'm not saying it is belief.
And I tip my hat.
But the people that believe them, they don't care because they believe it's true.
I know. So, and I have to tip my hat. I'm going to have to, how do I take a knee to a computer with Issa here?
I don't know, but you probably
being the most rational person I've ever talked to that defends the Muslim faith. I went to college. My best friends were from Oman. You can't criticize the king. They were Muslims. And every single time I'd question them, they would shut me down immediately. And Issa is being totally reasonable. I mean, the conclusion is insane, but he's so reasonable.
Issa's great to talk to. Issa's been on my show probably more than anyone else. Now, does he talk when he's here all the time? Not always, but Issa has.
Because he's been on here. I love smart. He picks and chooses when he talks. Yeah. I got to talk to him about Israel and Palestine, and he was great.
We had a couple good conversations. Me and Issa did. He's a lot of fun to talk to, and he's not, he's the thing that I said and that I've always said on this channel is I like having honest conversations with people. And Issa is one of the very few people that will tell you why he believes what he believes, what it is that he believes, and tell you that like that's just what he believes.
It's like irrational. Yep, I will tip my hat to you as well. He's I'm
it's
impressed.
Refreshing.
I wish more people were like you, even though it's still an unfounded and illogical.
You should watch my conversation with Mark Reed too. That's another one of my buddies. I actually became friends with everyone. I talked with Matt Dillahunty, Mark Reed. I go on David Wood and Apostate Prophet show. They're good friends of mine too. I
mean, it's just interesting that I can show you that your position is irrational and you're totally okay with it. It's impressive.
But so he believes it, so he thinks it's true. Well, if what he believes is true, the consequence to that would be it doesn't matter what you showed him because that other thing is true, right? So there is no instance of where I think that this is an important place though, because I think that you get to this place with theists sometimes, and it's just like, okay, I mean, what else do you say? Like That's the root of it. Like, you believe it, and if it's true, it has this consequence. You think it's true, and so like it's, you know, that's why I say you don't choose your beliefs. Like, either you're convinced of something or you're not. And
I can prove that with scientific studies, Joe.
Sure, but if you don't find that convincing, it doesn't matter, right? This is the thing.
Yeah, that's the whole point of the scientific study. If you don't believe
what
it,
I'm saying, it doesn't matter to what you believe, because your belief is something totally separate. So like you can show somebody everything in the world, and if they don't find that type of thing convincing, it doesn't matter.
I'm super glad that Joe is a determinist.
Yeah,
because ontology is different than epistemology. Joe's going to be a cousin fucker regardless if it's justified. All right, guys. I've been on here for way too long. Joe, Isa,
call me a cousin fucker and run. Go ahead.
Yeah. I appreciate you having me on. I had a great time.
Yeah.
Have a good rest of the conversation, guys.
So I wanted to explain what I was trying to say a little bit, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah.
So my point is, I think everything is subjective. I don't think that there is some objective reality in anything. I think we're humans, and that's what I was trying to explain. There's a difference between hard sciences and social sciences. They're just not the same thing. My field is social sciences. Sure. I've done a little bit of hard sciences because I've done healthcare. I was going on the nursing track. Still have a little bit of ways to go for that, but it's different. Studying anatomy and physiology is not like taking a comparative religion class. Yeah. They have different things that you're dealing with, and dealing with human ethics, it just really depends. So like, ethically speaking, what do we know is absolutely true? We don't know. We agree on certain points, and I'm fine with that. But I'm like, I have humility. That's the point that I'm trying to explain. I'm humble in my position. I can't say that I know that what I believe is true. It works for me.
Well,
you know,
in Will's defense, whenever we were discussing this, because me and him were talking about this before I went live, and I was like, hey, come on and let's just talk about it. And so in his defense, in the beginning, it was labeled as what is objective to human minds, which is a different question, I think, in because of the way that you view it, right? Like, what's objectively true everywhere and what's objectively true to human minds is a different thing to you. So for me, what I was, I think what, how to put this? I think because of that distinction that it's then that allows for, like, if we make the rules for something and we agree on it, sure, the rules are subjectively made, but once we start to play the game of chess and we've agreed on the rules, those are objectively the rules. I think that's where the root of all of it really is that it's objectively true that we played chess, and chess has this set of rules that we've agreed on when we started the game, and we played under those rules. So that was, you know, that
human contract. I believe it's social contract theory. Yeah. It's human contract.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I stated that I don't think Will really understood what I was saying, and that's the problem. See, we're different. I come from a social science background. He comes from a hard science background.
That's why I told you
different languages. We're speaking two different languages. So I'm like, dude, you're speaking hard science language to a social scientist. That's not going to work, bro. I'm like, I understand your arguments for hard science, but hard science arguments don't work in a social science arena. You deal with it's much more murky and abstract. Hard sciences are like, okay, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That's it. That's our formula. We plug and chug, and it works.
Yeah.
Dealing with like what is correct for human society, that's complex. It's not easy. We don't have a definition. That's why we're battling it out in this country.
Yeah.
We're battling it out in this country. The Democrats and Republicans are battling out what is right for America. There's one side is telling us, you know, we have to have safety. We must have safety. The other side says we need to have, human values. People need to have bodily autonomy. They have rights to that. This is a huge conflict. It's a battle. it is a fight against these two things, and they value very different things. Obviously, we value where we stand is more on the leftist side, so we value leftist values. We are not obsessed with safety and security as much as we care about bodily autonomy and people being able to have values depending on whatever identity they have. If that's fair, I think we are on the same page on this. So I'm saying us in this. I think this is what we value. Other people, they value very different things. They think that we must follow their interpretation of Christianity, because there is not an objective view. A lot of Christians are saying they believe in family values. I'm like, I've read the entire New Testament. There's no family values there. These people were celibates, they were anti-sex, and they were celibates. All of them were. So the great hero, Apostle Paul, Saint Saul is a celibate. Christ is a celibate. All of them are celibates. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Your mother and your father and your brother and your sister, right?
Yeah, that's true too. Exactly. For God. So God is more important than family. And I don't mind that. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's a different interpretation of Christianity. I think Christianity, and I'm a very strange person in my theist background, that I'm like, I love Christianity. I think I like what Jesus says. I think it's interesting and it has value to me, personally, but
So I think for you and I, because I differ a little bit from what most atheists will tell you about how I view like the rationality of certain religions and stuff. I think that there's from a social sciences position too. Like, I think that whenever we look at different cultures, we see how these things are spread, and we know that people are they tend to be defensive of that, and religion is one of those things that people have picked up, for, in the case of Islam, 1600 years. So it's like there's a it's a cultural thing to believe that it's true or whatever. I think, but it's it comes down to, at the end though, like you accept this, and I think there's good things in the Bible and there's good things in the Quran. I agree with you there. I think there's things in there that I think there's valuable lessons that can be taught from the Bible. I think there's a lot of crazy horse shit in there too, but that goes with all holy books too, right? They get a bit of both, some more than others, right? But I think that there's good things to be learned from it. And if for no other reason, like, I think the Bible has a historical value, just by showing us like the writing style of the time and how religion was practiced. I think as a history of what religion was, because I honestly hold the position that religion will disappear sooner than later. I think that I don't wish to like rid the world of religion overnight or anything like that, but I think that it's on its way out the door as information becomes more available to the average person. And whether right or wrong, that's a different conversation, right?
You know what my opinion is? I think we're gonna have different religions. Like, I love science fiction, so I think Frank Herbert's like Dune, we might have like an advanced science fiction type religion that will adapt with the times. That's kind of what I think. I think humans and religion are sort of married. I think we're just going to have a different development with religion. It's just going to look different. That's kind of my opinion.
Yeah.
But certain religions are going to change, and the religions that we see now may not exist anymore. And I grant that,
I agree. Poor Claire sent a $9.99 super chat. If Quran isn't literally true and can be interpreted however you want, what good is it? Why should people read it if ideas really come from their own heads, especially since it can be interpreted to say bad things?
So I have an easy answer. I don't want to say easy answer, but I want to address what Claire is saying.
Sure. I would love you to do that.
I think what Claire is saying, the thing is, what Quran can do is it can make people have guidance, and it can allow them to be morally aligned in life, like things like Salat. Salat is the 5 times prayer that Muslims do. Ramadan, fasting Ramadan, and it helps them think about people who are disenfranchised. So the Quran and the Sunnah, these traditions. So these things can help people feel aligned. It creates community. These are all like anthropological, sociological things that are positive for society, and they can be good. Can they be interpreted badly? I think anything could be interpreted badly. That's why I brought up Ultima 4 and 5 as like a video game reference or PC game reference, because
No,
what is objectively true? I'm like that's why I brought Mao Zedong. I don't think atheism's bad. Half of my family's atheist. My
Yeah.
family are Jewish atheists. So I'm like, I come from atheists, you know?
I agree. Extremism can be horrible in
Yes.
just about any position that you hold.
Yes.
And there are going to be those extremist positions.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely on that. I think that's good social sciences, right? I mean, that's right. I mean, that's what
That's
it's all
it.
about. Yeah,
That's it. And I agree with what Deviant Outcast was saying, that's the point. It's like we can't apply the mathematical formulas. And look,
Yeah.
if you're not hurting people, that's what's the important thing. And
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
care what religion you are. If you're a believer in Christ, you believe in the Torah, you believe in the Bhagavad Gita, you believe in the Quran, just don't hurt other people. Don't force people into your religion. Just do it for yourself. And if that enriches you, if you're atheist, there's nothing, I don't have anything wrong with any path people take. That's my position. So
I
I'm
know.
like, this is weird where you're like, what is methodologically true? I don't care. It doesn't matter to me what's methodological. If you think that works for you, brother Will, that this thing helps you, you're guided by your methodology, I'm like, that is dope, dude. But I think people have faith, and you need to work with people having faith. You have to grant that,
Yeah, no, I think that Will, as an engineer, views the world very much through the lens of an engineer, right? I mean, and yeah, no, I feel you. I get it. Like
that was my problem. I'm like, that's what I'm trying. I'm like, dude, you keep talking to me with hard science. I'm like, that's not going to work in this conversation.
The whole reason that took place is because him and I have actually talked about this before. And he says, what do you think the theist answer is to this particular thing? And I'm like, well, they're not going to answer. They're not going to be able to answer that because that's not how they arrive at their position. Like it's that gets you to a certain point, but at some point it's going to go from there to, I believe this thing here, and whether that's justified and all that other stuff has, there's a lot of nuance into all of that. But as far as like just the direct route, somebody at a certain point, they have to believe it's true. And whether you view that as a good thing or a bad thing or whatever, it's just the case. I mean,
I agree.
Yeah.
And what I would say is really, I think why people mostly have faith, it's experience. It's not the book. Like there's this weird Protestantization in religion. Like, and Daniel does this too. He's like, well, the Quran literally says, I'm like, no, it doesn't, dude. The Quran is poetry. I'm sorry. Like if you take a surah where it says, "Idha ja'a nasrullahi wal fath," when comes the help of Allah and the victory? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. I could use an exegesis and I could look at that, but in and of itself, I can't understand what it means by just reading the text. That's how the Quran is. And people are like, the Quran is a terrible text. I'm like, it's not. It's a poetry text. It's like reading William Blake's Tiger. Is that right? William Blake's Tiger, Tiger, Burning Bright. And you have Shakespeare's works. It's up to interpretation and what you read to yourself in the text. And I think that's actually a benefit of the Quran in a sense. It doesn't literally tell you anything. And then some people are like, well, here's the historical context. That's one reading. If you're reading it through a historical context, fine. That's a historical reading. And that's what you get from the text. So,
yeah. And I think,
that's my position.
I think where we, of course, where we differ is that at that point, like there's, whether it's interpreted or read literally or however you do it, at some point, you've decided, I believe at least whatever you believe. It doesn't matter if you believe that's true or something else, but you arrive at some belief. I mean, if you're convinced that belief is true, then you're convinced. That's how this works, right? And when you get to that point where you think you're convinced, I'm still not convinced. And that's, so that's right at the place where we meet in all of this, right? I mean, like,
I don't think we actually disagree on that. I think my position, you said actually where I agree, is that there's good things in this text and there may be things that are not so good. What it is for the person, if this helps the person, that's all that matters. I'm
No,
looking at it as a scholar and anthropologist. That's what it is. It's
I've
like,
always
yeah,
told people, like, if you derive your morality from the Bible, or
cool.
you need to go to church to be good to your family and do what you're supposed to do,
So
then by all means believe it and do what you
go
got
to
to
the
do.
masjid, go to the temple, go to the church. It doesn't matter. That's my position. I don't really care if it's true or not. That's actually where I stand. It doesn't matter if it's true because I don't know if it's true. Like I can't prove if it's true or not
right,
true.
exactly, exactly. In the words
So,
of the great Stephanie Helms, though, it's, like, I don't really care, like, what thing you believe is true or whatever, or what I think is true or anything. I don't care what anyone believes. I care about people's actions and what they do
I agree.
with those beliefs, or without them, or whatever. Like, that's the thing that I'm interested in. And so it's
I agree.
people. I want to demonstrate on this channel, and I've got another theist coming on here soon that's a Christian, but speaks out against creationists. Like, I'm more than happy to talk to people and have, just nice discussions with them about this stuff, and it not be adversarial. Because at the end of the day, my problem isn't with the Christian that believes something. It's with the creationist that's giving that stuff to children and teaching them that science is a lie and all that. That's where my problem really lies as far as belief goes. I don't care what anybody believes. It doesn't matter. It's the things that are done in the name of religion that
We
I have
agree.
a bigger issue with. Yeah, no, I know we
And
do.
I actually agree with Claire. I don't care. Half of my family are atheists, right?
Yeah.
And we're 100% on the same page. I don't
Yeah.
care if people have religion or don't have religion.
Yeah.
What I
Right.
care about is what people do. So I wouldn't want, honestly speaking, it's funny after the fact, I wouldn't want to be in spaces where people have their interpretation of religion ruling the country. I don't want that for myself because I'm probably not going to agree with most people who are running with religion. It's very right wing and it's against where I stand. I don't want Iran's Islamic Republic running me ever. I don't like how they treat women. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to live in that world, but that's their interpretation of Islam, and I disagree with it. I think it is Islam too, but I don't like that Islam. And Judaism, there's like some kind of things where it's very controlling of women in certain spaces. I don't agree with that. You know what I mean? So I believe in freedom, so I'm a pro-freedom activist. So
Yeah. No, we agree on that too. I
don't think we really disagree, bro.
No, I don't either.
I'm with you 100%. I don't care if you're atheist or theist.
Yeah.
Just don't come in my place and tell me what to do and make me do what you want me to do.
Yeah.
Stay out of my lane and we're good. Like, I don't like people who try to force things on me, and we don't want that. We don't want that.
No,
and
no.
like, for example, do I think smoking weed is bad? No, I think it should be legal. In fact, some people self-medicate with marijuana. It's an important thing that people have a lot of pain and it helps them. And I have family that use marijuana as a healing device, but a lot of pharmaceuticals don't want marijuana to be legal because it competes with their business because marijuana does a better job than what their drugs do. So, so they're like, you can't smoke weed. You can't, use edibles, I would promote using edibles over smoking because it's better for your lungs, but
no,
I
definitely agree. Poor Claire's been a member for 2 months. You can get those benefits without religion. I'm just going to read the message, even though we already kind of talked about it. But no, I think you and I actually agree on a whole lot of things, and that's one of the things with me though that. Because I don't necessarily think that people who, especially when you have such a large population that's indoctrinated into all these different religions, because, whether that's the right way or to do it or not, it takes place all over the country and the world for that matter. And, I think that, I think though that we see that it's, again, a cultural thing, and it's not, you believe whatever culture you're brought into, but then there's people that convert in different directions, and Islam, of course, has been picking up a lot of people convert to Islam. I think though that it's just, I mean, when you look at it over, I look at the Pew Research on the religious beliefs across the country and in my state and all that stuff, and it's interesting stuff. I think that the number of people that believe that man walked with dinosaurs and stuff like that, I think that is problematic. But as far as like just the fact that like in Kentucky, I think it's like 82% of people believe heaven is a real place. Like 75 believe hell is a real place. And which is weird that those numbers are that far apart, but whatever. I know that there's different views on that. But it's strange to me because not only do I not see evidence that those things are true, but like I don't see any good reason to ever believe any of it's true anyway. Yeah, outside of the indoctrination thing, like not only no evidence, but not even a particularly decent reason why anyone should believe any of it's true. Now they do, and whatever, that's it is what it is. But I can't be dishonest and say that I do because I don't. And that's really kind of where I lie on all that, because I'm not. Well, I think that religion does some really horrible, awful things, or people do awful things in the name of religion, however you want to say it. I think that there's an argument to be made that it's like logs on the fire whenever, people believe it or whatever, but I don't really approach it that way. I understand that people believe different things and try to just talk to them about it or whatever without it being adversarial. And the thing of it is like talking with you, Issa, I disagree with your conclusion completely, but we don't have any argument getting there because you're honest about it. And I think that demonstrates that what I'm saying is true, is that I do want to just have honest conversations with people. I'm not like, it's there's no fight if you're just telling me what you think is true. Like okay, you think it's true, I accept that. Like that's the answer. I'm better with that than whenever people bring their arguments and say, well, this is what I think is true, and it's because this thing about the universe, that the moon doesn't move fast enough or some shit. Like that's whenever I quit. Like I would rather you just tell me you believe it than give me horse shit that you're just parroting from some other place that was wrong then too, and so it's refreshing to get to have those kind of conversations. Will has an excellent brain on top of his shoulders. He does. He's a very smart person and a good person, and I like Will a lot. He is kind of like, when it comes to asking the tough questions, it's again, he's an engineer, so it's always like, what is the mechanism that makes this thing this way? Like that's going to be Will's position, and
that was my problem with it. That's why I know. I was challenging him, and he couldn't really. It didn't compute. Like I'm like, I understand what your argument is, but you don't understand what I'm saying. That was the problem. Like I know what you're saying, but you don't know what I'm saying, and that's the issue here. Well, you're like, this is my worldview. These are how everything has to have mechanistic things, and I'm like, but you don't. You're doing the same thing that I'm doing too. Like you don't understand that you're literally doing the same thing. Because and Mark asked a valid question. Mark asked, he said, well, do you think the flourishing of human life is good? He's like, well, I don't think that. I'm like, oh, here's all these subjective things that you are engaging. You do believe it's subjective things. You don't want to because it's hard. You like to have a framework that is cut and paste and it works. Yeah. It's black and white. And I'm like, dude, I'm a social scientist. Nothing's black and white. You're not going to persuade me of that. And then you can't then tell me about how mechanisms work in natural science and then try to translate it into our murky, abstract way of working. It's not going to work.
That's one of the things I told him about this whole conversation, is that I agree with you. I think that your your approach on paper is the right way to go about it. But whenever you're dealing with people, you're not going to get the answers aren't yes or no. And I think that's where you're going to run into problems with that. And like, I agree somewhat with where he's driving at with that. But I also, again, I'm a little more charitable on the why people pick up certain beliefs and stuff. Like, I get it. Like, some people believe something's true. And again, like, if you think it's true, there's no like, oh, I shouldn't think that thing's true, I'm not gonna. Like, that's not an option at that point, And so to me, it's just, whatever. Because I've met people that believe in ghosts and people that believe in voices talking to them and aliens and lizard people and that believe the earth is flat and all those things. And it's they believe it. And there's and I'm not trying to equivocate your belief in Islam with flat earth. I'm just saying it's the same as in there's people out there that just believe things, and that's where the conversation ends because they believe it. Like, what else can you say?
Well, my position is that Islam has value. I'm not saying Islam is objectively the absolute truth, which is a very different thing than most theists who say. That was my position in debates. I saw a lot of Muslim debaters who were kind of really nasty.
Yeah,
and,
I agree. There were a couple.
And I was like, oh boy, this is not good. So I said, let me stand up and show a different kind of interpretation of Islam. I'm going to engage what Claire really has a very hostile view of Islam. I've spent a lot of my time studying religion academically. Like, I have a doctorate in it. This is what I do. And I don't find it genuine. I don't find this a really fair way of engaging this. Because really, she's already coming to the conclusion that the Quran is just this evil, bad book. I'm like, there are things that are controversial and they need to be engaged and they need to be debated. You can't just come to the conversation and be like, dude, this is a terrible text. It's bad. And I am giving the most uncharitable reading of the text and say it's a horrible thing. I think that's not fair. I don't think that's correct, in my opinion,
So first of all, poor Claire, thank you for the $9.99 the second time. Disingenuous to say you can interpret any book in a bad way. All books are not equal. The Quran says great people. I think that I agree with both of you in actually here, because I think that there are again, the Quran, it depends on how you're viewing it, what these things necessarily mean, right? Like, and at the same time, I don't think that. I think a book that tries to convey its message in this way is there has to be some sort of reason to use this particular method of pushing whatever narrative, but that's what I think of religion.
It's historical timing too.
Yeah, there's a lot of things at play. I agree.
I disagree with what Pragmatic Crystal is saying. It says what it says. No, this is Protestant way of looking at religion. This is low class theology. I'm sorry. Saying the book says whatever it says, that's not how you read book. I wouldn't even read standard books this way. I'm not going to read religious texts this way.
Here's the thing. If you don't believe that any of that's true, though, you don't really have a choice but read it literally, because at that point, there is no alternate interpretation or anything else, because if you don't think it's true, there's no way to. I mean, with certain things like parables, we get it. But like, if you ask me, that's not in the spirit of what it says or whatever, I can't tell you that, because I read it literally. And I think that most people that are believers take it different. Every person takes it differently, which is fine. But she also kind of pushed back and said, how are others like Iran interpretations?
I already engaged this. It's not. I don't believe. Okay. See, this is the point. It's like it's a straw man that you're attacking. Like, I don't take that position. I said they're all different. If you saw my debate with Apostate Prophet, I said religion is polylythic. There are multiple interpretations of religion. There's not an absolute true one. Iran has. I've always said that they have a version of Islam. I don't agree with their version, but it doesn't mean it's not real. It's not true. It is a version. There's many different types of versions. So I don't believe, this is the thing. I don't deal in absolutes. So you can't deal with me like I'm a person who engages in absolutes, because I don't believe religion has an absolute thing. I think there are different things,
I think that your points are I think that you're making valid points in a different conversation. Um, I think that I do like the pushback and stuff, but I think that Isa is unique among among most theists that I've talked to, because it's especially when it comes to Islam. Although my interactions with people that believe in Islam are limited to YouTube, and therefore it's been Nadir and Daniel Kikachu and folks like that. So like, and I see those verses and those things, and I agree with you. They're awful if that's but that's what it comes down to with these holy books, is that's a literal interpretation of it, and it's not interpreted that way. And for someone who doesn't believe, it's hard to like put yourself in those shoes and try to interpret it a different way than you do. I think that the words used are, I agree with you. I don't think that.
So I'm going to engage. Do you mind if I engage with Claire saying, first of all, Claire, that's not what I'm not saying. Claire, I'm not saying. I'm saying when you're trying to read theology as saying the book says what it says is the best way to do it. I'm like, that's basic. That's not looking into deeper dimensions that the text might have subtext. It's a low level way of reading a text. If I read a book and say the words mean what it says, that's a low level reading of it. A higher level reading, it's saying what's the subtext of the text. This is any type of literature. I'm talking about just in social science in general. That's how it goes. It's low level when a person's like, well, the book says something, so it means that. Dude, if this thing comes from God, and God is the most all-powerful, all-knowing, all-seeing thing, don't you think there would be some more complexity than just human language? It would have to have multiple layers, wouldn't it? How could it be just a normal human understanding? It'd have to be deeper than that if God is real. We're granting if God is real, then that would be the case.
I think it's like, maybe for a biblical scholar or a Muslim scholar or whatever, there may be a way for them to interpret what you're calling the subtext. I have a problem with that too, though, because I can't read it and take it any other way. Like I can't insert things that aren't there, because I would never even think to do that, because I don't think any of them are true. I think it's just a book.
You think it's a fairy tale?
I know there's places where it fits in, like there's places where it's like, okay, I get like what's going on here, but I think there's a lot of places that aren't. And that's, but that's, again, I personally, and maybe it's just my lack of being able to comprehend that heavy of reading or whatever. Like I can't read any subtext into it personally, like, because I know that that's not going to be right. I have no reason to do it. And so when other people do say, well, this is what it's really talking about, this is what it means, and all this, I have to question how do they come to that conclusion? And why is that? Why is their conclusion any better than anyone else's?
I think that the difficulty is with these texts, if you read them directly, you're not going to know what they mean. They just don't mean anything. If I read the Bible and it's talking about a completely different people, a completely different time, has a bunch of fancy words, I have no idea what it's talking about. I won't know what it means if I read the text without any other explanation. I can't read the Bible and know what it means. I have to have other insights to understand what this text means. And a lot of people do, because we grew up in a society that promoted this text. But in general, we don't know what these texts mean in and of itself, particularly if you're reading a King James version. And then it has all the British stuff in there where they start talking about lie. What's lie? I have no idea what that means, and that's the problem. It's also very historic. It's within that context of that time, the 7th century,
I agree.
1st century. And it's so bizarre that people are like, I read it, it means it's connected to this time. I'm like, dude, people didn't have like everybody's educated. We all go to school,
So when we assign it to that time, though, that's where my major questions come in, because talking about literature, I mean, the way that people were taught to write fictional pieces is to take existing works and exaggerate and make them into their own stories, or change them and make a different story out of it. Like that was the how to learn how to do that stuff. And I would argue that it looks like, especially with the Abrahamic religions, that that's exactly what happened. And that is taking into account the historical context and the literary context of the time.
I don't think Claire gets it. I don't need to prove it because I don't believe that. I mean, this is the problem with people who deal in absolutes, is that they need to project their absolutes on other people. I don't care. I don't understand why you keep asking this. I don't care. I don't believe my position is true. So thus I don't need to prove it. Like, what is there?
Well, I think she was arguing with me there that she didn't say the literal one is true. That's me.
Oh, is she debating you? Okay, that's
yeah,
fine. I'm just like, if you're debating
on
me,
that
I'm
part
like,
anyway.
I'm like, I don't think there's any true one. I think I don't know what's true, and I take that position.
That's what is hard to understand, because it's like, that's really the question, right? And then when we get to that question, it's like, I have no way to show you it's true, but I believe it's true. And there's no, that's just where the stop sign is, right? I mean, like, there's not really anything, we can't go any further than that. But I think we've been going for almost 4 hours now, so I'm gonna wrap this thing up.
Me too, brother. I gotta go also.
Yeah. PC, I appreciate you hanging out and doing your thing. Poor Claire, I really appreciate your generosity and being a member. All of you for being members, for that matter. This is a member stream, right? But I really appreciate everyone listening and watching and all those things. And I probably went over transpositions completely. Yeah, go ahead.
1 second. She was debating me. No,
okay.
I didn't say they had a wrong interpretation, so that's false. I never said that. I never said anybody had a false position, because that's not my position. And what I was debating when I said people have low-level theology, I was actually debating your position. You're saying I can read the text and know what it means. And so if someone takes that position, that's a low-level theology. Does it mean you're wrong? I've never said anyone was wrong. So you can't keep saying that, and you're straw manning, you're shadow boxing with someone who's not here. So that's not me. So maybe you're arguing with someone else, but that's not me. And I've been very consistent that I said there is no true way of looking anything, and I've never said anybody's wrong. So I'm sorry, Claire, but if you're going to argue with me, then you got to get my position correct.
I understand you. Maybe that's a good reason for us to get into this discussion again sometime soon. Poor Claire's telling me I'm not done. Okay, go ahead. I'll wait. I'll give you a couple minutes to say your piece. I'll be while you're topping, I'll do my ending announcements, and then after you guys discuss it, we'll go. The Sunday I'll be on with London Storm. London hasn't been doing a whole lot of stuff lately, but he seems excited to come talk to me, and I think that we'll have a good conversation. London Storm is from Kentucky, well, not from Kentucky, lived in Kentucky and moved to, I think he's in Germany, maybe, but moved to Europe. And so I haven't really got to talk much since then. I've seen some videos and stuff, some things that interested me, and I asked him to come talk, so he's going to. But I've got that, and then Monday I've got Mandisa Thomas, and we'll probably talk a little bit about the walloping she gave Kent Hovind. But Mandisa Thomas, yep, that's going to be a fun show. I look forward to that one. What do you really got something for Claire, or were you just being like dramatic for the sake of chat? I want to give you a chance to say whatever you want to say. I don't mind to wait around for a few minutes or whatever. what else is going on? There's a lot of big things going on. I'm working on a show to do with my girlfriend, where we come on and talk about different things about being an atheist couple in a highly religious part of Kentucky in the Bible Belt. We're working on putting that together. There's just some things. All right, we got questions. We've got an intro worked out for it. Do I have it on here? Can I show it? Can you see Claire's message?
She's asking, what makes you think they say to beat your wife or kill people they actually meant to love each other and kumbaya? That's so what I think is I think that that's just an interpretation. That's what some people believe. Some people don't believe that. That's my point. Okay, those people believe that thing that I don't agree with, and they can read the text and justify their position. Anybody can take the text and justify where they stand. So that's their reading of the text.
Yeah.
And I don't care. Like I don't have that reading. I'm not a literalist. I don't believe these religious texts should be read literally. And even if they were read literally, I would say it would be stuck within the context of its time, and that's it. I'm sorry, Pragmatic Crystal. Do you read Arabic? Like, do you study? Like, are you well versed of a scholar to say that you can make this position? I find that to be super arrogant, man. Do you have the scholarship to take that position? I won't even take that position. I've spent years studying religions in general. I have master's degrees, doctorates. I spent so much time studying many religions, and I can't study all religions. And I would never say I know for sure what these texts say. And you do? Based on what, brother? Like, what is your credential? Like, I don't know. It's so arrogant. And you're like, oh, I'm going to read the text in English. I don't have any scholarship in these religions, and I'm going to stand and tell you what these religions mean. It's sickening, man. I've studied Hebrew. I've studied Arabic. I've studied these things, and I don't know the answers to this.
I think that's where most atheists have the problem, though, is that it's not that you can't tell us what those things mean. It's that you're unique in that most people do go around and tell people what they think it means, and it seems like that's not a great thing either. You know, like
I'm an academic, and I do scholarship, and I read these texts, and I don't have absolutes in this. I can't. So if those people claim it, they're claiming outside their range. You know.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, I just think that there's like, while it may not be I mean, there's just different conclusions is all I'm really pointing to, I guess. I'm not really I'm not trying to like weigh it one way or the other. I don't you know, again, it's I think in your case and in a very small percentage of cases that there are people that believe in things and it's for the good of it, like you say, and the you know, I mean, everybody defines it their own way and comes to their own conclusions, and I think you agree with that, right? Like, so
I answered Claire's question. I think Claire's a little bit arrogant. I'm sorry. I answered Claire's question. I said that is an interpretation of the text.
Well, I think now the question was, that's why I asked, what utility does the text have?
It has different utilities. I've already answered that question. I said it's good for community. It's good. People get, when they read the text, it's individualized and personalized for them. Study like how religion has effects anthropologically on people. you can get a lot of answers from that. So that's it.
Yeah. To me, just the fact that has to be the approach to it, for some people, it seems to me like that would be a sign to them that something's not right here. That I can't, like, it's supposed to be telling you about the Almighty Creator, like, even if it's, in some kind of analogy or whatever.
Sure.
And it's, I don't know. I think there's like certain fundamental beliefs that goes into it. If taking that route to it, the thing that confuses me is kind of close to like the question of divine hiddenness. It's like, okay, well, the God that you believe in made it to where you couldn't understand how to reach that conclusion, and made it difficult and everything, which doesn't make it not true, but just doesn't seem like the from a text that at one point, whether it be analogy or not, proclaims that it is the written word of God. It's God's word took a pen to paper on it. And even if that's just metaphor, that's the claim that it's making, but then it doesn't give you good reason at all it remains the claim. It never gives you any reason to believe it's true. It just makes claim after claim after claim. And that's my falling apart point with it. Like, it's not, I mean, I accept that some people don't feel that that's the case, but when I read it, that's the conclusion I come to.
That's fine.
And
I think it's fine.
That has zero authority.
And I think this is my position. It doesn't matter. You can take whatever position.
No, I agree. I
think it's weird when people are like telling other people how to do it. I just find that to be arrogant. If you don't believe the text is real, then don't believe it's real. I don't care.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt me. I'm not going to make you believe the text is real. I just think if the text has value to you, then it has value. It's like, does the Bhagavad Gita have value? To me, it does, because I'm a Desi. I'm a South Asian, so I like South Asian texts. Culturally, it has value to me. The Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, they have value to me as a South Asian person. I like these texts because they tell me about some kind of narrative of Desi culture. So I like these texts, To a non-Desi, they probably don't. So that's it. All right, I better bounce, brother.
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap this thing up. Thanks for your questions, everybody. And if you want me to have Isa come back and we'll talk some more about it, we sure can. Just let me know. Leave me a comment or something. Let me know, and I'll make sure that I get it in the calendar and we figure out a time Isa can come back and talk more. But thanks everybody for watching. Catch Isa over Talking on Matters Now. I'll be back Sunday with London Storm. Have a great night, everybody. Later.